Are you looking for an editor? I actually do free critiques and readings for your story every single Saturday on my live stream.
My name is sacred. I am Butternut. You want to minimize the chance of a reader being pulled out of the story and being like, wait, what's going on? Forget dropping to the drop zone. I'm dropping you guys now, but drop or die. I would go harder in on the language that you use when describing the technology, the mech, the air units. In a maze of unending grid-laid streets with no avenue of exit in sight, when I wake up from dreaming, sometimes I wake up silently screaming. Add or adjust some of the language so it matches Boschian landscape, mirror world, shadowland.
Or if you're looking to hire an editor for your next book because you're ready to take it to the next level, I do full editing services where we'll focus on character.
The man froze for a moment, then nodded. Wolf, me, Wolf. I want to know more about each of the characters. Wolf makes me suspect that he's either father, a pirate, the evil antagonist, like the capricious nature of life's tapestry. You want to highlight and elevate that relationship between the two of you, that meeting moment.
World building.
I want more of this. Rhyming tone is music to the ears. I saw you're dead inside. That something happened I never knew about. And all those lies, loneliness, and us having to cope with it, relate to it, understand it, or fight against it is a very powerful message.
Dialogue.
He was surprised that this woman, of all people, was giving him a pep talk, because sometimes when we have characters who speak too much, it's easy for someone to tune out if they're reading it. And this is a really interesting world, and I don't want people to tune out on your work.
And structure.
Ben jumped up a little disoriented and grabbed his gun. Running to the stairs, he heard men yelling, "Who else is down there?" During this shootout, I would just add a little more detail, make this a little longer, because this shootout is fun. This is like the action sequence of like, kill the bad guy, pow pow.
So that way your book will be all ready to be published. And let's take it to market.
All right, and we are live. Welcome to the Story and Critique Show, the first live writing experience where writers from the community will submit their stories for a live reading and a live critique. And let me tell you, we have over 15 to 20 submissions for today's show. So we are going to get right into it because we have quite a number of stories from different genres and different formats. And we're starting right now. And by the way, if you're watching this on the replay, I got you covered. So if you are getting a live reading or critique, and let's say you want to hear it again, or you miss a part, or there's a story that you absolutely love, when the stream ends, I will add time codes to the entire stream so you can hop to the part of the video that brings you the most value. All right, and let me hop into the comments. Glide, welcome. Thanks for bringing the popcorn over here, by the way. I appreciate it. I was like, so far I've only been bringing the popcorn for our story time shows. Eli, what's up? Welcome to the stream. Vaughn, my friend, welcome. I'm excited. I see all of your stories. Marta, welcome. We're still awake at this hour. That's awesome. And Bethany, my friend, I hope the writing's treating you well. All right. And I'm happy to see all y'all in here. Stephanie, what's up? Stephanie in the house. And it looks like we're getting the usual crew today. So I'm stoked because I love this story and critique show, because I get to do the story readings, and that caters to my acting background and their critiques, which my goal is to help you become a better writer so you can really finish your story and then get it published and put it out to the world. So we're going to hop right into it with the readings and critiques. So make sure that if you still want your story read or you haven't submitted it yet, send an excerpt to kaufman@thecreativeghost.com. It's down in the banner below. Send that excerpt and I will add it to our submission queue. Excellent. Now, as I'm queuing up the first story for the day, Mary Last, I got you on deck. The Crystals Fantasy by Mary Last. Mary, I got your story all set up. I know, yeah, So I'm super excited to get into it. Now, as I'm setting this up, let me just go over a couple of submission guidelines. So kind of how I go through this process. If you submit your story and I do not get to it, it gets added to the following Saturday's show. I will do my best to get to as many stories as possible. I love all varieties of stories. We tend to get a mix of fantasy, science fiction, and thrillers with some romance thrown in. Sometimes they're stories, sometimes they're scripts. We even get poetry. So any and all is welcome because I believe that I can fix and provide guidance for any story that is about characters, character development, and world building. And that transcends formats. Perfect. And then in terms of the formatting, so writers will send me in stories that will be formatted very differently. I adjust the formatting, I adjust the font, the typography, and the style to blow everything up on the screen so that way you can read along as I'm doing it and make it easy for you to join in on the experience. Now, in one of the previous streams, I know somebody brought up that the Comic Sans was kind of hard for them to be able to really read it from a more professional standpoint. If any of you are a fan of a certain typography, I'm always open to new ideas. According to Google, Comic Sans is the most convenient and consistent font that writers use when doing the rough drafts of their story because it's easiest on the eyes. And excellent. Every story that's submitted gets 20 minutes. 10 minutes for a reading, 10 minutes for a critique. I will do my absolute best to stick onto that 20 minutes so I can get through all the stories and give everyone an equal opportunity. Beautiful. And most importantly, above all, the most important thing, have fun. Come join in on the experience. If I'm reading a story and there's something that really stands out to you, drop a comment because one of the greatest things is when you share your story with the group, getting that feedback from other writers is so incredible because everybody has their own writing expertise. I'm just a writing enthusiast, and I believe in all of your credibility as writers just as much. So if you're going to give a comment, let's say there's something that really stands out to you in the reading itself. Let me throw up my screen there. Perfect. So if you see something that really stands out to you, what I've done is I like to include my guidelines right here on the right. These are the things that I like to look for when I do my critiques. If let's say I'm doing a reading and a line stands out, just put the specific line that you're referring to or some type of way so the writer is aware of like, okay, that critique worked out really well. Give either something that worked well or something that didn't. And know that anybody who submits a story, we all want to make your story better. Our goal is to help you create the best possible story. And as the author and the writer, it's your job to determine, okay, you know what? I like this feedback, or no, I don't like this feedback. Because the beautiful thing is, you are the god of your own universe, and you get to pick and choose what works well for you. Okie dokie. And we are chilling. What's up, Owen? I got your story queued up as well, my friend. Glad to see you here. Horror, by the way, excellent. Thank you, thank you. I will fix that on the banner when I get to your story. Absolutely. Beautiful. Excellent. And you know what? Sometimes like we're working on our stories and we're like, hey, I want to submit my story. Definitely like take your time with it. And sometimes, let's say if it's like a rough draft, you can always be like, hey, you know what? This is a rough draft. I know there's these problems. And then I can always preface the reading with where you're at in the story to give the audience more visibility in terms of where it's at. Because a rough draft story is going to be in a much different place than a story that's in a final draft and has already been taken through an editor or an editing process. Hey, what's up, Zerby? Welcome to the stream. Welcome, welcome. We are just about to hop into it. Welcome, welcome. Love it. Absolutely love it, Zerby. Wonderful. Beautiful. Thank you for sending it over. I probably have your story queued up with the rest of them. Let's see. Hey, what's up, JC, my friend? I got your story as well. Glad to see y'all in the stream. All right, so we're going to start right at the top of the show. So I got the Crystals excerpt by Mary Last. All right, and I'm going to throw this up in the ticker. Beautiful. So, one of the great things about this is that we actually saw a similar version of this, an earlier rough draft version of this, I want to say a couple weeks ago. Yeah, we saw an original version of it a couple weeks ago, and I love when somebody submits a story and then we get another reiteration of it and they've taken feedback because that shows that we're taking the story step by step. And that's the goal, right? It's not about perfection. It's about how do I make the story better? One word, one idea, and one thought at a time. Okay, so I am all ready. I got 20 minutes on the clock. Okay, and let's get into it. The Crystals excerpt by Mary Last. Chapter 1. Gwen kept her promises. For the next few years, she taught Jasper and Danessa how to forage for herbs and taught them some minor skills in such a way they never suspected. Not everyone could do what they could. She told them they were more sensitive and aware than most people and therefore closer to nature. When they were 11 years old, she called them to sit with her in the garden. She told them how special they were and what their heritage truly was. We come from a long line of magic, said Gwen. The children stared wide eyed. Danessa and Jasper started questioning at the same time. Magic? Real magic? Like spells and charms? And Gwen smiled. Well, something like that. Have you ever felt good or bad about something and perhaps knew what would happen before it happened? Danessa nodded, but Jasper had to think about it. He softly admitted he could also. Gwen nodded. Well, that is just a part of it. Gwen took two crystals out of her garden basket. They were the size of small oranges, but had 12 flat sides. She demonstrated how to use them by focusing her thoughts. Then Danessa, then Jasper tried. Danessa having more success. He taught them how to use the crystals to communicate with each other over long distances, make it so no one would see them, but not actually be invisible. And, if necessary, they could call on other old magic to help them. You must use them with the utmost care, she warned. For every use of good magic, there is a potential for bad. You must consider the cost of using the magic. It has been said we can flood a desert, but may empty a sea. She then explained the energy cycle, how the orbs were a source of energy and how they received energy. These were their mother's last gift to them. How come you are telling us all about this now? Jasper asked. My time will be ending, and I have a promise to keep. Are you ill? Danessa gasped. No, child. I still have a few years yet, and you need some training. She then warned them to let no one ever find out about the crystals. Our kind has been hunted, kidnapped, and tortured for our power. So few of us are left. Many thought we had died out entirely and are nothing but legend. But they are wrong. There still is a scattering of us who know the old ways. Herb lore, which you already know, is still approved in smaller communities and used by the healers. You've spent so much time helping me to forage that you can identify the ones that will ease and cure, as well as the ones that will cause illness and death. You could almost be healers, but any practice using the crystals or using sight must be done in absolute secrecy. Just 2 months after their 14th birthday, their Aunt Gwen suddenly passed away. Her heart had given out, and not even the crystals could help. Left on their own, Jasper and Danessa had only each other. Jasper was tall for his age and had darker brown hair, honey brown eyes, and a few freckles on his nose. Danessa was shorter, had wavy blonde hair that reached to the middle of her back, and eyes that could change with her clothes and mood. The cottage needed rethatching to stop to stop the leaks when it rained, and so much more. But there was very little money left after the taxes had been levied to pay for the new housing. Too young to find work to support themselves, they did what was necessary. There was only one other neighbor left who was packing up to move to the new town. She was a meddlesome, scraggly old widow who was becoming much too curious. Entwin had never liked the old woman, as she was a terrible busybody and gossip. So, although it was fortunate she was leaving to supposedly live with her niece, Jasper thought it best for them to leave their old home. Newtown would be too dangerous and costly for them. With nowhere else to go, they went to the decrepit old town where they found Mole and the other urchins. Or maybe it was Mole who found them. They were wary at first, but soon Jasper and Danessa were accepted into the world of petty theft and secret hiding places. One day, as she removed her cloak, Danessa almost dropped her orb in front of Mole, one of the younger urchins. He had squinty eyes and a pointy nose, and was best at popping up when least expected. He could be such a little pest. "Hey, what's that?" Danessa said. It's just an old ball of glass. It makes things look funny. It's all I have for my home." "Let me see it." Mole made a grab for it. "No!" Danessa pulled it away. "You'll break it." "Won't," said Mole. "It's mine, and I don't want anyone else to touch it," Danessa insisted. "Oh, just keep your old glass ball." Mole got up and left. Jasper had seen some of what happened. "Dee, you have to be more careful." "Yes, I know. It won't happen again." She tucked the orb in her jacket, and no one but her brother saw her eyes glisten. "See that it doesn't," Jasper chided. He put his hand on her shoulder, just enough to reassure her he wasn't really mad, but enough to remind her how serious it could be. "Come on, let's go see what there is left to eat." For 3 years, Jasper and Danessa's secret was kept. Or so they thought. Dun dun dun. End reading. Wow. Once again, that was actually really, really cool. Wow. Mary, I'm actually really impressed at how much how far along this piece has come from the last revision that we had seen. So I remember I know we've dug into a couple excerpts of this story. Now, like reading it as an overall follow through or as overall flow, the overall story flows really well. I'm actually really, really happy with that. I'm so proud of where it was when we first saw the original ideas for it and then how it's progressed. This feels like a story. And I'm actually that is so cool. I think the things that are working for it right now, I would say right now the plot is very strong. I would say the plot is very clear what's happening. I love the plot. I'm a fan of the structure. I love how the plot is going and I love how the structure. And I think with the dialogue, I think there's just some opportunities to just cut down on dialogue, but that's a little bit more editing and technical. And I think right now the biggest opportunities are in the character development and the world building. Now I'm gonna hop into that and let me just check in the comments real fast. Let's see. Yes, I would absolutely agree. The cliffhanger ending was super cool. Chat, community, writers, what did you think of the story? Was there one thing that stood out to you that you really liked? Drop it in the comments. Funny how grandmothers and children communicate. I know, right? It's such an age difference. Hey, what's up, John? Welcome to the stream, my friend. We're just doing critiques right now. So right now, Mary, so this is what I would say. So I would say the biggest opportunities for it would be the world is there along with the characters. I think there's some opportunities now to take it from this intermediate level that you got into and really digging into some of the details to really bring it to the next level. Now, what we'll do is I'll go into each of the sections. This overall chapter wasn't super long, so we should be able to get into it. So, oh, by the way, I know we read the prologue. I know we read the prologue for it with the dying mother. Please make sure you keep the prologue once you get to the published story, whenever you get to the end, because I actually really liked that prologue with the mother dying. I think that started it off with a really great action. just as an FYI. You're probably still doing that since it was the chapter 1 that you had worked on, but that was just something that came to mind. Okay, so as I look into the beginning of this story, what works really well from the original draft of it is that you've done more work in smoothing out the flow of each of the scenes. The overall flow of the scenes feel so much more dynamic. They feel much better than the last iteration, and I think that's awesome. Let's see. So as I get into the beginning of this, so something that I would recommend, and this would just be kind of a cool idea, if for Gwen, so they ask Gwen, why now? And Gwen says, because she's not going to be around for very long. What if, and this could actually up the intensity of the scene, what if Gwen literally just finds out that she's going to be dying? What if she just finds out that she has a terminal illness? Like, if you start the chapter with that, with her finding out, oh, I'm going to die. And then she's like, I have to tell the children right now. That could add some intensity that can make it that could elevate the overall dynamic and flow of it even more. And I think it would be cool for pulling the reader in from the beginning of the chapter. Just a suggestion, but that might be something that could help pull the reader in faster. Let's see. So she basically teaches them. Yep, and this was from the prologue. So that she's basically teaching them about herbs and foraging. So she's basically been teaching them as the mentor, which is great. That's clear. And I think this chapter is really serving to be like, oh, I'm not going to be around for long. I need to tell you this magic stuff now, right? Right now. And I like that. Basically, when they turn 11, and I think that's great. We come from a long line of magic. This is a good opening. This works. They're in the garden for the next few years. She told sit with her in the garden. I might just give maybe 1 or 2 sentences here on what does this specific garden look like. If you tell me a garden, I close my eyes and I envision they're like in like the back of maybe like a cottage or a house, and there's a bunch of flowers and plants. Maybe there's walls, but everyone's going to picture a garden a little differently. Now, with description, and this is a pro tip. So for any writers, pro tip, some writers like to use description. They like to use a very minimal approach, use some things to describe what's going on. Other writers want to describe every detail and give the reader the exact image of what the characters in the world looks like. There's no right or wrong way to this. You can go either way. But the thing you do have to do is, if you go the minimal approach, you have to give just enough detail to give the reader some type of outline on what it could be. And then the reader can fill in the details. That is if you go with the minimal approach when it comes to description. Okay, so we're going here. We come from a long line of magic. Good. Good question. Is it magic, real magic? And I like this. I like the childishness and the youthful nature of both of the children. I think that's super cool. I think that translates really well their youth. Have you ever felt good? And this is great. This is such a great opening. I think this feels exactly like something that like a mentor type character would say to kind of get them to initially grasp the concept. I would almost start out the chapter maybe with this line as well, because this is such an intriguing piece of dialogue. Have you ever felt good or bad about something and perhaps knew what would happen before it happened? This piece of dialogue is really interesting to me. All right. And then he saw the mid. Yep. Gwen took 2 crystals. They were the size of small oranges, but had 12 flat sides. Great. She demonstrated how to use them by focusing her thoughts. So with this, the small oranges, what color are the crystals? That's I think we have the flat. So we have the image. I just want to know what color a crystal looks like. And then if you want to go like in depth, you could always give how they feel is another thing. But that's just a suggestion. She demonstrated how to use them by focusing her thoughts. Then let's see. And that is just a part of it. She demonstrated how to use them by focusing her thoughts. Then Danessa tried, then Jasper tried. So the only thing that I want to see here is, what does that mean specifically? So she demonstrates how to use the crystals by focusing her thoughts. I think I need a little bit more detail. And I think the right way to go about this would be to describe, instead of doing it in the third person, what I would actually recommend I would start a paragraph like here. So you set the description of the crystals in the previous paragraph. And then this one, I would actually have her do the action. Gwen, for example, I'll just put example, and I'll put that here. So example, this is what I would do. I would say Gwen took a hold of the crystal and closed her eyes. The 12 sides immediately began to glow, and I don't know too much on what the magic does specifically, but if I was to like take a guess, the 12 sides immediately begin to glow, and a flower nearby them grew to the size of a tree. Right? You could do whatever you want, but I think doing a visual of showing, because this would actually let you show specifically the magic, because that's what we want to see, right? Now, you don't have to go like in depth, but I think if you do something super cool that gets the children to be like, oh my God, I want to do that. And then it makes it more like it's playing, even though Gwen is like, this is a serious thing. So that's an example of how I would go about that. I would do action. You could also stick to the third person, but I think the action might be a little more engaging. Let's see. And then this is good because then you're kind of describing the process, and that's fine. I think it's just the opening moment of what the magic looks like would be interesting. And then this, if the children are playing around and having fun, it would actually make more sense. It would make more sense for when she's warning them of like, oh, you have to take care because they're dangerous, right? If this is then like the end of the paragraph is like, Jasper started banging the crystal against the wall, against a tree. Something like childish, something that a child would do, right? That you don't have to do that, but just an idea. And then this would be like, oh yeah, like children, don't act like children. Like this is dangerous. All right, and that's good. You must consider, that's all good. This is going into the details. And then how come you are telling us about all this now? If you precipitated the beginning of the chapter or earlier on with her like learning that she's ill now, or maybe like if she's coughing, this would actually add to that. And then this, like right now, it makes more sense. I think that would just elevate it, make it a little more fun. Let's see, no children, then wore them to let no one ever find out about the crystals. This is good. And when I was saying on dialogue being cut down, I think this is the one piece of dialogue. It's kind of like, I know there's a little break, but overall, the dialogue, it's what you're saying is fine. It just needs to be edited down. It just needs line editing more than anything, but the content is fine. It's 2 months after their 14th birthday. And then this is good. The only thing I would do this, if you do a time skip, I would recommend, now this isn't necessary, but this usually helps cement the reader. Remember, writers, we want to make your story as easy as possible for your reader to follow along. We want to minimize the chance of your reader getting lost because of a structural thing, dialogue, grammar, whatever. Make it as easy as possible because as readers, we have a trillion books to choose from. We need to hook them in, and then we need to keep them reading. If we make it as easy as possible, you minimize the chance of having them lose interest or go hop onto social media. All right. So what I would recommend with this part is I would just do some type of like, do a line or do some type of thing that just represents some type of time skip, This is what I like to do with my own stories. You can do whatever you want, but this is just a recommendation. So that way the reader's clear, like, oh, okay, we're doing a time skip here. Now, the only times that I don't think that's necessary is if the time skip happens during chapters, because a chapter is a clear mark that it's a different story beat. So like if it's from chapter to chapter and it changes time and it jumps time periods, it's fine. But if it's in the middle of a chapter, that's when I would recommend using these. And darker brown hair. I love that you used her hard game. I love that you gave Jasper and both of them a little more description. I absolutely love that. 100% love that. Really great job. Really, really great job. I love this. Nose were shorter, that reached the middle, and eyes that would change with her clothes and mood. Perfect. And then what you can even layer on in the next part is like what are they wearing? What did they wear in this next part? I love this backstory. This backstory is great. And I actually really loved that you included the old widow. I hope that old widow is the same one who shows up in the tavern later, because that old lady was so funny. She was a great character. My God, I like almost want you to include like a line where the widow like says something to them that's really comical. But I hope it's that same character. Perfect. And then I would just break up this paragraph into 2 separate paragraphs, just so we don't have a run-on paragraph. And then we get to the mole part, and the mole part is fun. I like the mole part. I think the only thing I want to include, and your setup for the mole section was actually really well done. I really liked how you set up them like going to this petty world of theft with nowhere else to go. Like I would actually start here with nowhere else to go. Like this is great. And then you get Mole, and Mole's like the leader. The only thing I want to know about Mole is what does he look like? He asked, Nessa said. And then I think the only addition to that would be what almost like maybe like a little action in between of like, does Mole, I feel like Mole would try to like grab it from her. Like he's like, it's mine. Like, I like a picture like this, like guy with like huge glasses of this mole, like trying to get like grab it, almost like a Smeagol type character. Oh man. I also think of, is it Wheel of Time? I think it's Wheel of Time. No, it's Sword of Truth. There's the the epic fantasy series, the Sword of Truth series. There's a mole character in it that totally reminds me of this character, who's more of a bookworm in the thing with giant glasses. Awesome, and that's all that I got for you, Mary. Those are all the recommendations and feedback. I hope that helps. If there is anything that either didn't make sense or you have questions on any like follow-up or any specific things, as always, feel free to drop a comment, or you can always email me 100%. But I'm so happy that the story is coming along, and I'm really eager to see where you take it to next, like what this next like bit's going to be like. I really want to know more about the crystals now. I really want to know like how this power is going to come to life. So you have a really good story so far. Really great work. All right, beautiful. So let me queue up the next story, and we got on deck. Let's see. We got Glide. I got your story on deck. Falling for the Ace Assassin by Glide Fang. All right, Glide. So I'm going to queue your story up. And let me first hop into the comments. Let me go see how we doing over here. Let me see. Vaughn, thanks so much, man. I really appreciate it. Make sure to like and share to grow the channel. Woo! I mean, the channel's been growing. Like, I appreciate it. If y'all want to share it, absolutely. The way I look at it is the more writers that join the community, the more active our chat is, and the more writers that can give you feedback when you submit your story for live critiques. Absolutely. Yeah, Bethany, definitely looking forward to whenever you submit your story. excerpt if you do end up submitting it in the future. Awesome. And it looks like you guys are just chatting about some storytelling. Love it. Vaughn, you asked a great question. So, Jared, hey, Jared, you also sent us an email with a cool grid of how to build our stories. Could you show us how to use that, like how you would use that in the recommendations? Let me think. You might be talking about the edit tool. Vaughn, just clarify for me. You're probably talking about the editing tool that I created. Just clarify if that's what you're talking about. Glide, so great question. Line editing. So there's different types of editing. And you'll hear these terms from editors all the time. Developmental editing focuses on the story, focuses on the character development, focuses on world building. Developmental editing usually comes first because if your story has problems, let's say a character doesn't work and you need to refine, you need to redo the characters. I can't do the editing for the grammatical stuff because if I did the grammatical stuff, then the developmental editing, like you're going to have to change that stuff anyways. So developmental editing comes first. Then you'll usually get copy editing or line editing. So copy editing tends to focus on structure, the overall structure of the piece, on how paragraphs look, on how like dialogue is punctuated, on things like that. Line by line editing. I kind of like to put line editing and copy editing in the same category personally. But line editing is basically an editor goes sentence by sentence and make sure that A, the sentence makes sense grammatically, B, it makes sense from a structural perspective, and C, that it flows overall as a piece of writing. So great question, Glide. Really great question. And then a final thing that editors do, you've probably heard, is proofreading. That's kind of when it's gone through most of the editing process, and then that's like the final of like someone's going to read it and they'll find minor fixes and minor revisions for it. So great question, Glad. All right. It is. Eli, it's a good call out. It is. It's a little like mastering. Yeah. And I mean, like a lot of new writers, and this is the challenge, right? So a lot of new writers don't have the finance. I mean, not the finances. A lot of new writers end up trying to figure out like how do I invest for editing, right? Because sometimes the goal is just to get the book published. And a lot of professional editing services are really expensive. But for a book to do as well as possible, it needs to go through these types of editing, right? You got to make sure that the stories and the character make sense. You got to make sure that grammatically things work. If a reader's reading a page and there's like 10 grammar mistakes, they're going to eject from the story simply because it pulls them out of the story. Yep. Yep. And usually this is what I try to do. I try to combine all the editing services into one. Some editors do that. Some editors do specific parts of editing. Yeah, it just really depends on what you're looking for and really what your goal is. If your goal is just like, hey, I don't care if people read it that much, I just want to publish it, then don't worry about the editing as much. Make sure that somebody does read it before you put it out into the world. But it's really, you just have to clarify for yourself what is your specific goal. If your goal is to make money, if your goal is to publish a book and then make money on it, then you definitely want to get it published. And you also have to recognize that once you publish a book, that's not the end. Once the book is published as a self-published book, then you got to figure out what your marketing strategy is on what are you going to do specifically and how much money are you going to invest in marketing it to people. Your friends and family will buy your book simply because it's your book. But my guess is if you're trying to make money on it, you probably want more than just your friends and family to buy the book. And of course, there's the percentage that the Amazon algorithm could push it out there to a larger audience. But that's the same idea of trying to chase after viral, like a viral video or a viral piece of writing. You're trying to chase after the 0.1%. instead of the 95% of people who have to do the work to get their stuff out there. So that's that's my diatribe on that. All right. All right, and that is good. And all right, so I got glides. I got your story all pulled up. Perfect. And I'm super excited. We get to go from fantasy to romance thriller. And by the way, if you're enjoying the stream, make sure to follow and subscribe. Tap that follow button if you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitch, or X. And if you're here on YouTube, hit that subscribe button because you'll be alerted when I go live. I'm a crazy writing live streamer. I live stream every single day, daily. Monday through Friday is the Casual Kaufman Writes writers groups where we do workshops, writing sprints, and we try to work on improving our stories. Saturday, obviously, we're here at the Story and Critique Show. And then Sunday, we have our Creative Right Now podcast where I interview working writers, published authors, and industry professionals. And we'll have our next episode of the Creative Right Now podcast tomorrow. So if you're subscribed and following, you'll be alerted when I go live. Okie dokie. And we got Glide. You are all set. Beautiful. Awesome. And I'm all set with you, Glide. Here we go. So we got Falling for the Ace Assassin. I'm like really curious what the story is about. This is a romance thriller, Falling for the Ace Assassin. And by the way, when we think about titles for stories, like we have to use titles as hooks. I'm really curious. What do you think the story is about? Just based off the name, Falling for the Ace Assassin. Is this going, I mean, clearly it's romance. So are we going to have some type of like two like ninjas are going to like fall in love? But it's also a thriller. Yeah, I think two ninjas are falling in love in this story. So I guess we're about to find out. Okay. So I am all set. I got 20 minutes on the clock. Falling for the Ace Assassin by Glide Fang. Chapter 1. Connie huddled in the corner of her living room. Connie huddled in the corner of her living room, her ears trained. Hold on, I'm going to restart that. I need to turn off my Grammarly, or it bugs me too much. Okay. All right. Sometimes Grammarly like absolutely resets on me. All right, I'm going to restart that. Okay. Chapter 1. Connie huddled in the corner of her living room, her ears trained to the soft padding steps up the stairs leading to the porch. She prayed that it was all just her imagination, until the familiar, awful squeak of the loose porch floorboard dashed her hopes. He was here. Ace, the notorious assassin she ran into just 2 nights ago. Connie gulped and peered over the sofa at the front door. The one thing that was bad about open concept houses was that everything was laid bare. The only things to hide behind were the old furniture she brought from a thrift shop. Connie breathed shakily. She didn't want to die like this, house poor and a virgin. In her culture, there was a special hell for virgins, or so she was told. She heard a click and saw the lock to her door turn slowly, like a useless dial serving as a decoration piece instead of its purpose for peace of mind. Her mind raced. What could she do to delay the inevitable? Think, she commanded herself, struggling to come up with anything but a blank slate. Screaming for help wouldn't do anything. By the time the neighbors woke up, if at all, she would be dead. The door opened, and a tall, dark figure stood at the doorway, illuminated by the full moon. She popped back under the side of the sofa and considered if she could make a mad dash to the front door, where he was busy searching the house for her. She heard his footsteps, walked straight into the living room. Oh, shit! Wait, please stop! The footsteps stopped. Uh, um, can you please take off your shoes? I don't like shoes in the house. Idiot! Who cares if you like shoes in the house? You're going to be dead! Since he paused anyways, she better say something more useful. I have one of your cards. I didn't show anyone or tell anyone. I didn't even see your face. Can you maybe not kill me? She heard a clunk of shoes, followed by another. Either he took off his shoes in consideration of her earlier request, or he was doing it so she couldn't hear his footsteps as he crept up to kill her. Panic gripped her. She needed something to make him stop. She said whatever came to mind. Wait, please! Before you kill me, can you at least sleep with me? For the first time, she heard his melodic baritone voice. What did you say? Despite her embarrassment, she continued. Maybe she could get out of this. I'm a virgin. My family told me if you die a virgin, you go to a special kind of hell. I'm already going to die young. I don't want to go to hell too. Silence. Connie was shaking, sweat rolling down her back and shaking her pajamas. Fine. With just one word, she got a promise to prolong her life for a few more minutes. Perhaps she could find another way to survive. How did it come to this? Her mind raced to the events a few days ago that led to this mess. Connie Tran, a young woman with large almond eyes and straight hair tied into a neat ponytail, looked up from her desk. Yes, Chief? Come into my office? Connie stood up and walked after her superior. Her coworkers looked at her curiously and whispered amongst themselves. Connie was younger than them and never entered their clique, focusing on work instead. Connie later realized she missed the opportunity and regretted being less personable. She knocked on the side of the open door. Sir, you asked for me? He looked up from his desk. Yes. Connie, yes, come in. Close the door. Connie felt a sense of dread with every step she took into the Spartan-looking office. Her superior smiled. Congratulations! You have been promoted to a secretarial role in the CEO's office. You will be getting a 20,000 bonus this pay period and a 10% pay bump. Back up your things and report to HR immediately. He stood up and extended a hand. Connie quickly ran up to shake it. You have done great work. Good luck with your new post, he said, adding emphasis to his last sentence. Connie smiled broadly. Yes, sir! Thank you, sir! She practically skipped out of the office. The pay increase couldn't have come at a better time. Her old boss sighed and muttered under his breath. You're gonna need it. Connie hurried to HR with her small box of personal items. Her mind raced as she thought of how to tell the news to her mother back home in the suburbs. Connie, the only daughter in her generation, practically swam in testosterone growing up. She didn't have any siblings, but had 5 older male cousins, and every single one of them had the same hobby: bully her. She fought tooth and nail to grow up. Every time they got together, she had to inhale the food as fast as they did, or she would go hungry and hide in her room so she didn't have to be thrown into the pool. The day she went off to college was when she ascended to heaven, free at last, free from the bondage of family. When she graduated, she quickly found a job in the city and rented a while until a small fixer-upper went up for sale. She had to borrow from her parents, but was able to put down a sizable down payment and lived paycheck by paycheck to pay off the mortgage. Despite the financial burden, she felt liberated. At least she wouldn't have to put up with her cousins every weekend. Now, with the bonus that should hit her bank account on Friday, she could pay off another good chunk of the principal. She squeezed her eyes shut and squeed. She squeezed her eyes shut and squeed quietly. HR scanned her badge and gave her access to the CEO level. The older woman glanced at Connie and gave her an apologetic smile. Connie raised a brow, confused. Here is your badge back. Keep it safe. You know the rules for the company, but there are some additional ones you need to know for the CEO's office. Connie looked down at the sheet of paper that the lady handed to her. 1. Confidentiality is key. What you see and hear is to be kept within the secretarial office. 2. Mind your own business. Connie flipped the paper over, then held it up to the light. The HR lady watched her amused. What's wrong? Are there only 2 rules? Yeah, just the 2. You must keep them in mind. If you're ready to go, I'll take you up to your new desk. Connie nodded. She clipped the badge to her pencil skirt and placed the useless piece of paper in her box before picking it up to follow the HR woman. The HR lady had Connie scan her badge in the elevator to test if she had access, and they rode the elevator up to the CEO level. The moment the elevator door opened, Connie gasped. It was like walking into a hotel. The floor was no longer the mauve blue carpet she was used to. It was white, marble polished to a shine. The windows were floor to ceiling, and all the artsy flush mount ceiling lights were interconnected, looking like gold clogs across the ceiling. The HR woman stood quietly, giving Connie a chance to take in the sight. Impressive, isn't it? Connie nodded, her mouth slightly ajar. The HR woman sighed and spoke quietly. Between you and me, it's not all glamour here. Make sure you follow those 2 rules and you'll be fine. Connie smiled. Yes, ma'am. The woman looked at Connie and shook her head. Follow me then. This is the reception area. She gestured with her right hand. To the right is the CEO suite. You are not permitted to enter there unless the CEO, Mr. Kensington, calls you there himself. Am I clear? Connie nodded. The woman nodded and started walking down the hall to the left. We're now going to the secretarial office. Mr. Pierce is your direct report. He is the personal assistant to Mr. Kensington. Mr. Pierce is mostly a patient man, but ruthless if you get under his skin. So don't do that. Connie nodded again. With that, here you are. This will be your new home. The HR woman pushed open one of the double mahogany doors and walked in. Connie peered in eagerly from behind. There were a few rows of desks and a woman sitting behind each desk. The women in front were beautiful, one more so than the other. Connie frowned and was about to mention something about their dress code when the HR lady tapped the piece of paper in Connie's box. Mind your own business. Connie watched as the ones in front were chatting and polishing their fingernails or fixing their makeup, while the ones in back looked ragged and were typing fiercely on their laptops. The HR woman led her to the only desk at the back. This is your seat. Your new laptop has already been set up. Log in and change your password. Good luck. The woman patted Connie's shoulder gently and then turned to walk back out of the room. Connie looked at the other woman working next to her, and they just nodded tiredly at her. Connie gulped. No wonder she got a hefty bonus and a pay bump. They were going to work her to death. And reading. Wow. So that was actually really cool. I liked the opening for that was really, really intriguing. I feel like you did a really good job of hooking the reader in through this like break-in and assassin type character, and then like she says the most random things that they do feel that they're unique to her character, with the shoes and then the sex. And I'm like, that's actually that's clever. I think there's some opportunities to really give a couple more details there so we can make the tone of it as clear as possible. But I think the overall hook, the idea, the concept does work. And I'm like, wow, I was like, I was not expecting that. And then right at the moment when the stakes are at a good high, that's when you're like, okay, well, let me tell you how we got there. Great moment, great thing. That's usually what happens when we're trying to figure out or no, sorry, I mean, train of thought. That is usually a storytelling mechanic when we want to use a piece of like the climax or a piece of the later story as a hook for the rest of the story itself. So that was really, really cool. Really great work on that. As I look into each of the parts, I really liked the character development. Character development was the plot. I think the plot feels very clear. I actually really like the plot. I probably can't speak too much of it because we only got a small excerpt of this story, and I feel like there's a much greater story. I'm so intrigued. I want to know how she meets the assassin by getting the job at this like company where it's basically don't ask, don't tell type of culture. So that was really cool. Structure, definitely a fan of the structure. The way that you chose to format the story works out very, very well. So that was a really great job. Writers, was there anything that stood out to you specifically that you really liked? Definitely drop it in the comments. Okay, so as I hop into the story itself, let's see. So Connie huddled in the corner of her living room. That was good. I liked your description. Your description of the house and Connie's situation works out very, very well. I really like that. Ace, the notorious assassin she just ran into 2 nights ago. Perfect. I she prayed. I think the only thing, so you describe it as an open she don't want to die in this house, poor, the only things to hide behind. I like that you say this is an open house concept. Does that mean that the house is surrounded by like windows on every side? Is that what open house means? I would just add the types of windows. So that way when she sees Ace or like through the window on the near the door, she saw Ace, the notorious assassin. Just a little bit of clarification. Um Perfect, but the rest of the description is great. Connie B. shakily, and she didn't want to die like this. House poor and a virgin. This beautiful, 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 beautiful character development because this is very unique to her character, right? She's very immature, she's either very young, or she just hasn't had that type of experience yet. And the fact that it's so important to her is really interesting. So the question we ask ourselves as a reader is the sex important to her because of this religious aspect? It sounds like she just doesn't want to go to hell. Is that really all that it's about? Or is that just the surface level? Right. And then the story takes us on the journey of like, okay, we get to understand and see, is that actually the thing? So that was very well done. We get this, her mind raced. Yep, that's all fine. So my only problem with this, with the shoe moment, is I think the shoes can work. I get the feeling that that her character weakness is that she tends to like mumble or not mumble. She tends to talk rapidly in nervous situations. That's kind of the sense that I'm getting. I think this would actually be a little stronger if she is forced to speak because he sees her. She heard the footsteps walk into the living room. She could hear him. She could hear him scrounging around the kitchen, and then he said, "I know you're in here." He said, "I know you're behind the sofa," or something that he has clear knowledge. I think it would be more powerful if he calls her out of knowing where she's at, and then she stands up and she like tries to find something to say, and she's like, can you please take off your shoes?" And then that would give it a little bit more credibility. Right now, it works, but I think you can make that tonally, it can make it stronger. Right now, it feels like she interrupts him because the shoes bug her. But the question that I challenge to you is if she feels like she's about to be killed, is the shoe really more important than her life? So I think that would just make it make a little more credible sense. And then let's see, idiot. And this is good. Like you even call out to it, right? And I think that's good. So that is good that you call out to and that you're aware of that as a writer. I didn't show anyone to talk. I didn't even see her face. So then is he wearing a mask? I would just describe him a little bit on what he's wearing. I would describe him a little bit since she says, I haven't seen your face. She had a clunk of shoes. And this is good, right? So, oh, he just acquiesced and he took his shoes off. Oh, so he's a nice person. He's not going to kill her. Yeah, that's nice. Um, I would then, to heighten the suspense as much as possible, I would then have him, let's say he takes off the shoes, right? I would have him then do something dangerous. Like maybe he pulls out a knife and he like tears something to shreds because it would heighten the suspense, right? So once he takes off his shoes, we're like, oh, he's a good character, right? He's a friend. Hakuna Matata. By adding something like a dangerous moment here, it would the panic would grip her even more. Because right now the panic is gripping her, even though if he just took the shoes off, like, oh, okay, so he's willing to listen to her. So maybe he is a nice assassin. And then that would make this of him approaching her even more like dangerous and threatening. Okay, he took his shoes off, but now he's coming at her ready to kill her. Yeah, I kind of figured. I figured he's a main character. I have a feeling he's a good character. What you want to do is you want to subvert expectations as much as possible. You want to give the reader every single clue that he's a bad guy and that he's about to kill her. Right now, tonally, the story comes across as that like, okay, he's not a bad guy, and that maybe they're gonna have sex. I would rather that tonally the story comes off is like dangerous assassin. He's going to kill her, and what she is doing doesn't work, because then that heightens the suspense even more, because then you want the reader to be asking themselves throughout the next portion of the story of like, oh wait, is he actually going to kill her? Because right now I'm like, oh well, maybe it's just in her head and she's paranoid. So I think that would just that would drive the suspense a little more. Yeah, that's what I would do. um And then I would say same with the sex thing. So I think this virgin thing is funny. I think that works for her character that you set up. Her character comes across as like a nervous Nancy type character of like, oh, I have to say something because it's silent. She hates silence. She has to like fill the void basically. And she's like, I don't want to die a virgin. I don't want to die a virgin. Will you have sex with me? Right? Maybe she could get out of this. I think I would just highlight her thinking. I would actually change the dialogue. I would highlight her thoughts of like, if I go to hell, I'm going to be a virgin. If I go to hell, I'm going to be a virgin. And then have her like blurt out of like, will you have sex with me? I don't want to die a virgin. And I would just leave it as like a single sentence. And I think that would make it more impactful. Silence. Connie was shaking, sweat rolling down her back and soaking. And then I think it would actually build more suspense if we don't get an answer from him yet. Instead, think about like how terrifying it would be if she's standing there and he just turns and he starts walking towards her. And then with just one word, as he's like gripping his knife, like running across like the pillow or like tearing a couch cushion apart or something, right? Her mind, as he approached her mind raced to the events a few days ago. But that's just a suggestion from my end. Let's see. I take the dirty floor to burnt house. You got to get out fast. Yep. Yeah, I actually know. I've had I definitely have some Asian friends who, anytime you go in their house, it's like shoes off, and like I know that's a big thing with Asian culture. So that actually makes sense. It's interesting because that didn't actually translate as it being a part of Asian culture. It translated as just being a part of like she just cleaned the house. So if it's a result of her cultural upbringing, I would just clarify that earlier in the beginning. Let's see. Focus on work instead. Connie later realized. So overall, I'm actually pretty happy with the overall this next section of the story where she's meeting um the office, the HR lady. You have the office boss. I think you do a good job of building up the suspense. I think that the only You said adding. Okay, yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Yeah, honestly, I don't really have too many changes for this next portion of the story. I think it's fine. I think the only thing that the next portion needs is just editing. Like things like this, I'll give you an example. Like, congratulations, you've been promoted to a secretary role in the CEO's office. Let's see. Congratulations, you've been promoted. You'll be getting a 20,000 bonus. And then I would turn this into one sentence. I would shorten this. Congratulations, you've been promoted to a secretarial role in the CEO's office with a 20,000 bonus and a 10%. That office includes a 20K bonus. I would just do something simple like that, right? $20,000, that's huge already. Pack up your things and report to HR. I would do that. Pack up your things and report to HR. And it's just little things like that. It's just minor editing things to just cut down on wordiness in some parts. But I think that's my real recommendation for the entire next two sections of it, because the structure of it works well for me. The dialogue is good. You have the character development. I like that. The plot works. And it's like things like this paragraph, like the day she went off to college. It just needs to be edited down more than anything. I actually wasn't sure what squeed mean. That could have just been a me thing. So just clarify that. I don't know if I just missed the word or I'm just not familiar with it. Great question, Glide. Highlighting is just a note for myself so I know what to talk about. So I know what I want to refer to when I go back to it. Highlighting is neither good or bad. She squeezed her eyes shut and squeed quietly. Let's put that in let's put that in Google. Squee. So squee is a squeed. Squee. It's a verb. Squeed is the past tense. Squeal. Oh, she squealed. I squeed. Squealed in delight. She squeezed her eyes shut and squealed quietly. I think I would go with squealed personally, but that's subjective choice. That could just be a me thing. I just wasn't aware of that. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'm pretty sure it's squeal. I'm glad that would be the only change to that. But it also depends, right? Who's your audience? If you're writing to an international audience, use whatever the most predominant like culture or language is. If you're writing to like a specific audience, use whatever cultural references or things that are more known. Like if I was writing a story to an audience that watches anime, I would be using more anime terminology and anime type references if that's who I was writing a story for. So it just depends on who you're writing your story for. I love this. Are there only two rules? Yeah, so all of this, like the rest of the story, I don't actually have any problems with it. I think the rest of the story works really well. Yeah, I'm pretty good with the rest of the story, Glad. It's once again, it's just editing. It's a lot more technical because the story structure itself works. And like I said, it's just editing down dialogue, making things more concise. That would really be my next step with it. I think more of like the structural developmental stuff is more in that first section, simply because like that's the hook and that's the action. And then in like the whole HR section, like that's more kind of just like transitionary of like, it's not like I can tell the story is about what's going to happen at the HR's office, but it's a little bit more of a transitionary section. So yeah, and that is all that I got for you, my friend. Absolutely, really great story, by the way. I really want to know, Glide. I want to know about this ninja assassin. I like really want to know about assassin, like what's him, Ace Assassin. I really want to know about him. I think you just did such a great job building up the hype for it. And now I'm like, okay, I'm like intrigued. I'm intrigued. Is he like an evil assassin? Like, I know you just shared he's good, but as a reader, I'd be like, ooh, I kind of want to know if he's evil, or do we got this like some forbidden like romance going on here? Like, sounds fun. So really great work, man. Definitely eager to see future either future excerpts or another iteration. Thank you for submitting it. Anytime, anytime. Excellent. Let me hop back into the comments. And while we're doing that, my next story on deck, Vaughn. Vaughn, I got your story on deck, my friend. So I'll be queuing up your story in just a second. And let me hop into the comments. Let's see. Yeah, so it looks like you were having a lot of really good talk about some references here in the chat. And then the shoes thing I could tell was you guys were all chatting about. So yeah, I mean the shoes things, the socks things, I think it's just clarifying. Glide. You want to make it clear what the tone is of that opening. Right now, the tone kind of goes back and forth between dramatic, romantic, and comedic. And I think you just want to ask yourself what do I want my audience to read? What do I want my audience to feel when they finish this initial concept? I think by clarifying the things we chatted about, I think that'll help make it tonally more effective in what you want to achieve. Completely agree. I would like to know more about like how old she is and why is he there to kill her. Last, what type of company does she work for? Or did I miss that? So like this is a great comment because Glide, these are the types of questions you want the readers to be asking. Mary, that was like that was the opening, so that was the hook. So Glide, this is a great example that these are probably the questions you want the reader to be asking when they get into the story. Excellent. Beautiful. So those are some good comments. Awesome. And let's see. So by the way, before we hop into the next section, I am doing a discount on my services, 30 to 60% off coaching, editing, and ghostwriting services. Woo! I was like, I need some cool sound effects on my to-do list. So I ran a discount last weekend. I decided because my focus is trying to build up extra money so I can invest in the next part of my business. I'm trying to capture as many clients and help as many writers as possible. So I extended the discount that I'm running until tomorrow. I'm doing it until the end of tomorrow, the end of the weekend, and then I will be re-updating that portion of the website along with my Fiverr gigs. So make sure that wow, look at that. Perfect timing. I definitely planned that. I'm just like, let's look, dang, perfect timing. I'm like, wow, that's of all the images to go in the background. So if you need, if coaching, how do you know if you need a coach? Generally, the way a coach works is with me, you buy X number of hours. Right now, the coaching discount is you can actually purchase, it's $30 an hour. That is so cheap. Like I'm telling you, that is literally the cheapest that you're going to get for a coach. I very intentionally went a very cheap rate. My normal rate is $75 an hour. I dropped it drastically for this discount. Essentially, you purchase however many hours you want, and then you can email me either outlines, story excerpts, concepts, or we have Zoom calls, and then the amount I work, I deduct from the time accordingly. It is a great strategy. If let's say you're trying to build a story on a budget or you want to speed up the process, absolutely recommend. And then the editing services are definitely a little cheaper as well. But if your story's ready, like you got the rough draft done and it's like, okay, time to get it to that final draft. I got you covered. Beautiful. So I wanted to make sure I threw in that. And Mr. Vaughn, let me get your excerpt here. All right, and I got you all queued up. Aw, that's really awesome. I got that's really sweet, man. Aw, and Theo's birthday party is tomorrow. Happy birthday to little Theo, which is perfect because this next story is Quantum Entanglement, a story for Theo. Perfect timing. Okay, so I got 20 minutes on the clock. And let's get into it. Make sure. Yeah, perfect. Quantum Entanglement, a story for Theo by Vaughn. In the vast universe, Theo, you and I are made of tiny particles, all originating from a dying star that gave birth to everything around us. Among these particles are quarks, the fundamental building blocks of matter. There are 6 types of quarks, and they combine in various ways to create the atoms and molecules that make up everything we see and touch. One fascinating phenomenon in this quantum world is called quantum entanglement. Imagine you and I are like 2 particles that, once connected, share a special bond. No matter how far apart we are, what happens to one of us instantly affects the other. It's as if we share a secret, invisible string that keeps us connected across the vast distances of space. In our lives, people around us often have very specific goals and points of view. Sometimes it might feel like our own path is uncertain or undefined. But just like in the quantum world, where particles can exist in many states at once and only take on specific properties when observed, our lives are full of potential and possibilities waiting to be discovered. Your father gave you a little quantum mechanics book, which is a treasure trove of knowledge about how the universe works on the smallest scales. This book can be your guide to understanding not just quarks and string theory, but also the profound mysteries of the cosmos. It teaches us that while we can understand the building blocks of matter, the direction they take in the vast nothingness of space remains a beautiful mystery. As you grow and explore, remember that life doesn't always have to follow a strict path. Just like quantum particles, you can exist in multiple states, exploring various possibilities. If you ever have questions about finding your way or understanding others' points of view, look to the wisdom in your quantum mechanics book. It shows us that even in the uncertainty, there's beauty and connection, just like the invisible strings that tie us together. So, Theo, embrace the wonder of the universe, cherish the connections we share, and always keep exploring. The answers you seek might be hidden in the most unexpected places, waiting to be discovered by your curious mind. Vaughn. Aww. That was really sweet. That was really, really sweet. Oh, that was very Aw. That like makes me want to tear up a little bit almost. Like that was very moving, friend. That was very well written. Aw. It Oh man, like where to even start with that? I would say it feels very impactful. It has this like it has a very, very grand approach to it. It has this very like dramatic, like intense undertone. And I can tell that the way it's written as the overlying theme and arc is about love. And it's impactful. And the reason it's so impactful is because you're explaining, right? Quantum entanglement and theories, and this is such complicated stuff, right? But you're explaining it, you're explaining it in a way that feels emotional, almost like you're explaining it to a child, which feels very young. And your approach to it is just, it's pretty incredible. Because like you can tell the goal isn't to explain quantum theory, because like that's complicated, but you're breaking down a few key concepts. But it's almost like it's the goal of it isn't really to explain quantum theory. It's almost like the goal of it is to show your love, and you're using quantum theory, the idea of it, as a starting point. And it's actually really intriguing. Like, Vaughn, like, really, really great job, man. That was really well done. I think that is definitely hands down, of all your stories that I've read, this is hands down one of the strongest emotional pieces that I've read from you. That was really incredible. I'm like, I'm like kind of thinking, and I'm at a little loss for words, because I like, it's powerful. It's short, it's to the point, and it does exactly what you're intending it to do. Whew. All right, let me try to dig in and see if I can find anything for to improve upon it. So when I think about the different concepts of what's working well for it, and we think about character development, right? So clearly, you are speaking to Theo. This is basically your. It's almost like it's like a love letter. That's what it is. It's essentially a love letter, and it's almost like you're saying it like Theo's going to read it one day, and it's going to be like a connection with you and a connection with his father or his parents, with the quantum entanglement, with the book that you mentioned. And the character that you're creating, which is really yourself on as the narrator, is really well done. It's you're using yourself as the narrator as like, I'm going to tell you this thing, but I want to tell you this thing because I want you to know how I want to impart this lesson, this single lesson of morality to you. And that's really, really cool. Whew, okay. So Theo, you and I, this is so sweet. Among these particles are quarks. Hmm. Now, let me just clarify. I know so little about quantum entanglement, so I can't speak to the mechanics or the structure, the understanding of it. But the way that you break this down is really sweet. That I feel like I do understand it, even though like I know it's such a complicated concept. Um, Imagine you and I are like two particles that, once connected, share a special bond. No matter how far apart we are, what happens to one of us instantly affects the other. It's as if we share a secret, invisible string that keeps us connected across the vast distances of space. I think the only thing that I would add, Vaughn, is I would think about when Theo is old enough to read. When do you imagine him reading this, or this being read to him? At what age do you picture him reading this and being able to comprehend, like, this is the age? And I think that would be something to keep in mind if I were to go through and edit this. It's And I think the age is important, because I think if you envision this, him reading it, oh, that's beautiful, Vaughn. That's really beautiful. I'm glad. I think the thing you would think about is, what if you imagine this being read to him when he's like 6, 7, or 8? That would be a different experience for him, as compared to like, is this the type of letter that you would want him to read in like 20 years when he's an adult, right? Because it's almost like it has this like, it has this finality to it, it has this grand totality to it that really touches upon, almost like you're reading it to him, like you're not planning on being there when it's read to him. And it's really interesting. I would like almost I think I would expand on the ending. As you grow and explore, remember that life doesn't always have to follow a strict path, just like quantum particles. And if you ever have questions about finding, look to the wisdom in your quantum mechanics book. When you mention this, okay, so there's a couple things. So what you touch upon the quantum mechanics books in our life, people also, sometimes it feels just like our own path. All right, your father gave you a little quantum mechanics book, which is a treasure trove of knowledge about how the universe works on the smallest scale. This book can be your guide to understanding not just quarks and string theory, but also to the profound mysteries of the cosmos. Teaches us that while we understand the building blocks of matter, the direction they take in the vast nothingness of space remains a beautiful mystery. This is the one paragraph where I think I would want to layer in a little bit more of how it would pertain to a specific take alone learning lesson of like his day-to-day life. Like, what is like the learning lesson of this book that you would want him to take away from? You're thinking it teaches us that we can understand the building blocks of matter, the direction they take, vast nothingness of space, which is great because you're touching upon the grand complexity of life, which is about how the universe works on the smallest scales. I would use like specific examples of like just even like just touching upon it. Like, for example, your father gave you a little quantum mechanics book, which is a treasure trove of knowledge about how the universe works on the smallest scales. Like when you're riding a bike and you fall down and you scrape your knee, or your first kiss in the rain, or your first girlfriend when you kiss in the rain, or the first time you learn how to drive a car. Just like, and you don't have to use those specifically, but I think tying it in to emotional moments that you would imagine like that you would want him to experience, I think that will make that will tie it in and make this specific paragraph just a little bit stronger. Because right now, like this paragraph, it's interesting and it does pull me in, but I think by tying it in into what is the single emotional concept that makes this like Theo in 20 years, that would make him be like, oh yeah, like I can relate with that. Like this just happened to me. So I think that would help. I think that would make this specific paragraph just a little more impactful. And then that would make this paragraph, as you grow and explore, that would tie that into that paragraph a little bit more. Because right now it talks to the grand complexity of things, but it doesn't really much as touch to the what is the specific emotional connection that you want Theo to connect with. And then I would almost add a paragraph here right before the end one. I almost want to know, Vaughn, like why you specifically are writing this story. Because like this is so emotionally impactful. And you end it off in a really brilliant way. You end it off very beautifully. And because I can tell this is a very specific emotion that you're wanting Theo to feel, I want to know, like, at the time that, like, you write this, or, like, if Theo's reading this, I want Theo to know of, like, oh, why does Vaughn care? Why does Uncle Vaughn care? Why is Vaughn writing this to me? And those reasons, like, that really, it comes down to what you want. But I think you adding a paragraph here of, like, Theo, I'm writing this because of XYZ. I'm writing this because I didn't get this taught to me. Or I'm writing this because when you're an old man, I won't be around. Or I'm writing this because of whatever reason you want to get. I think that would make this even more emotionally impactful because at the end, I literally like if Theo was to read this in 20 years or have it read to him, I want Theo to break down in tears reading this because this is such a strong piece. Like, oh my God, it's whew. Like this is like one of those like it's just one of those emotional like letters that you would that like this is like the type of letter that somebody finds when like their parents passed away. And it's just so emotionally impactful, Vaughn. Like, oh, that's so incredible. And I would start, actually, because it feels like a letter, I would start with Dear Theo. I would frame this as a letter. I personally, and this is a subjective point, but I think it just makes it stronger because I mean, it's essentially a letter. That's really what it feels like. And then I would end with Curious Mind, and I would end with love or whatever like sign off you want. Love, Uncle Vaughn. Or always writing. I would put something really cute here. Like you want to put like the cutest thing possible. Writing out, seeking master of the universe. No, wait, no, that one's too. Let me think. I can come up with something cute. I would put your forever writer. Let me make sure that makes sense. The answers you seek might be hidden in the most unexpected places, waiting to be discovered by your curious mind. Your forever writer. I feel like there's something cuter. I would put some type of like title. Uncle Vaughn. No, actually, that would be better. Uncle Vaughn. Because I'm putting here like love Uncle Vaughn, and that's basically like how I would do that. Or Vaughn, whatever you want to do is that. Love Vaughn. But instead of the love, I just feel like you could put something cute here. I would have to think about it. I think you could put something really cute here instead of just love or sincerely. But I think that would make it impactful. Wow. Yeah, really great work, man. That was a really great piece. I like was not. Keep searching, Mary. Oh my God, that was great. That's really great. Love Vaughn. And I would do that as a PS. PS. Keep searching. Or you could do keep searching, Vaughn. Yeah, I think I would do it like that. I would frame it like this. So then it's like, so Theo, embrace the wonder of the universe, cherish the connections we share, and always keep exploring. The answers you seek might be hidden in the most unexpected places, waiting to be discovered by your curious mind. Love, Vaughn. P.S. Keep searching. Never keep searching. Never give up. Or you could do something that ties back into theoretical. I would actually also maybe do something that ties back into a quantum entanglement and do like a cute quantum entanglement like pun. I think that would work as well. Man, yeah, that's all that I got for you, man. That was very emotionally impactful. Very emotionally impactful. Thank you so much for sharing that. I was not expecting that. That like totally caught me by surprise. Like, man. I was like, I think if I was reading that and it wasn't alive, I would be like, might be shedding a tear. Like, I don't know if I could cry on stream or not. Oof, man, really great work, Vaughn. Once again, like I'm so impressed. Definitely one of your best pieces I've ever read from you. Very impressive, my dude. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think I kind of have to like take a moment after reading that. Like that was very emotionally impactful. I feel like I'm now kind of thinking about like just like the complexities of life and like just the mysteries of life on the cosmos. So like great work. And I can tell from all the comments in here, Vaughn, that like everyone here in the chat feels the same way. You're getting all the like, that is lovely. agree with Eli. Beautiful, short and sweet, succinct, approachable, conversational. Like, that's I I would do something more with that, Vaughn. I would either, like, if that's a note for Theo, give that to Theo. If that's a start for like a story, or you were ever to like want to expand on that, like that's like the preview piece that you use to that people would fall in love with. Like, great work, my dude. By the way, I saw Marcel. I saw you hop in here. Welcome to the stream, by the way, my friend. Let's see. I think there's still some, and maybe a line or two missing, but I'm cutting myself off here. Glad you were able to get some work done on your writing, Marcella. By the way, I actually forgot to say that once we get to the end of once I get through some more of these stories, if you stick around to the end, I'm going to be doing my daily writing sprint. As y'all know, I'm writing every single day. This is live stream number, what day are we on? This is live stream number 153. This is the 16th episode of the Story and Critique Show and the 153rd day of live streaming consecutively. Woo, man. Out of 366 days. So getting there. That's really sweet. A wisp of Carl Sagan. I'd agree with that. I would absolutely agree with that. Aw, thank you for the shout out, Vaughn. Jared's service is super amazing. He made me focus on love, even though that was the last thing I wanted to do recently through coaching service. It's because you're so good at it, Vaughn. Like, clearly, we just like experienced it. Like, you are so good at writing about it. And I think your writing speaks for itself. And there's actually no cheating about that, right? So like when we're working on stories, we want to do as much research as possible, right? And we want to research stories that do similar things. If we're trying to convoke an emotion and I'm writing like a certain type of piece, then I'm going to go read certain different letters, and I want to understand, how do those letters convey a certain emotion? A lot of the times for letters like that, and generally journal pieces, they usually convey emotion due to the combination of how it's structured, word choice, and the specific sentences that speak to the reader directly. That's usually how like letters or journals do a really good job of conveying emotion. God, I wish I had this. There was one of my friends shared an absolutely phenomenal journal excerpt with me a while back, and it was one of the most powerful journal pieces I've ever read. If I can find it, I'll share it with you guys, because it conveys that similar type of emotion on just the finality of life, and I think it's beautiful. Thanks for being here, Glide. I appreciate you. I hope you were able to get a lot of value out of this. Yeah, so let's see, Marcel. Since the protagonist is a different race to me, I wanted this story to be diverse. I was gonna get its sensitivity read first, but if you're still up for it, I'd love some coaching. Yeah, absolutely. You're probably speaking to my coaching services. When you say 30 an hour, is that just for the Zoom meeting after you've read the piece? Great question. So basically, the way it works out, Marcel, is you purchase however many hours you want, whether that's 1 hour or 5 hours. Out of those amount of hours, you basically tell me, we start off with a free consult that doesn't cost anything, so I can understand what your goals are. But then basically you tell me, you're like, I want to use 1 hour on a 1 hour Zoom call, and we can talk about all the things. Or maybe you're like, you know what, emails are better for me. I would actually just like to use like hours on like weekly emails, and this is how I want you to deduct from the hours. It comes down to however you want to use it. Some writers prefer in-person Zoom calls, some not in person, but virtual Zoom calls. Some writers prefer phone calls. Some writers prefer emails. Some writers just want to have their story online on a Google Docs draft, and like, hey, I just want you to come in and edit it, and you deduct the time accordingly. It really comes down to what you want, right? And if there's a specific goal that you have, you're like, hey, this is what I need. I can basically assess during the consult and be like, okay, this is how long it's going to take me. So really great question. I hope that answered your questions, Marcella. If you, what I would say is shoot me an email at my Kaufman's Corner email, kaufman@thecreativeghost.com. So shoot me an email, Marcella, and I'd be happy to. We can kind of chat more and I can kind of better understand what that would look like for you. Absolutely. You absolutely should write it. You should handwrite it, by the way. If you're going to give it to Theo, you should handwrite it. You should get like a really like nice piece of parchment paper. You should order a specific type of parchment paper that has that kind of like old, maybe that older feel to it. Write it. Do like, if it was me, I would like do one of those old school stamps where you stamp it with wax. And that's how I would do it. It would make it feel like very, very like grand. I think that would be the beautiful way to go about it. Right? Like, this is the story, like, Vaughn, this is the type of story that needs to be read by Morgan Freeman. Like, this needs to be read by Morgan Freeman or Neil deGrasse Tyson. Those are the two I would want to read your story. That would be so beautiful. Oh my goodness. Zerby, thanks for that. I like completely agree. Hey, what's up? Crulio Julio, welcome to the stream. Welcome, welcome. Right now we're doing story critiques and readings today. We're actually just we're about to hop into our next story, but we like just read the most like powerful emotional piece like ever. Like, whoo, I'm kind of still like recalibrating from that story reading. It was so great. Oh, really good. Emotional because that piece was so good. But thanks for asking. Appreciate it. I hope your storytelling is going well yourself. I'm always curious when I see new writers in here. What types of stories do you write? That would be so cool, man. You know how much I would love to travel. That'd be so cool. Let me know. Let's see. I know. I completely agree. If Morgan Freeman was reading it, Vaughn, if you publish the story at all, please start a movement to get Morgan Freeman to read it. Only Morgan Freeman. Start a movement to get Morgan Freeman to read that. That would go viral. That's like, oh man, completely agree. Okay, so as I'm kind of like recollecting myself. Next up, Owen. Owen, I got you here on deck, my friend. The Corporate Gravestone by Owen Pratt. Owen, I got you on deck. And literally you just spoke, so I know you're right here. Give me just a second. I'm going to queue up your story. All right. Owen, and let me reset this. Perfecto. All right, and I got your story. Oh, yes. Oh, ooh, we're about to hop into horror. I once again have to say, friends, I love that each of you submit like different styles of writing. I love that in these streams we get fantasy, we get horror, we get these like emotional nonfiction, we get romance. Like, I love all the genres. I'm generally tend to write fantasy and science fiction, but I'm a huge horror buff as well. I'm a huge I don't go romance as much, but I appreciate it for what it does. So super cool. And it looks like we're about to get graphic horror. So we're going a completely different genre right now, which is cool. Okay. Owen is saying it's a very graphic horror. So I'm putting out the warning right now. Viewer discretion advised. Viewer discretion advised. I'll add that to the ticker on the thing. Reading number 4, The Corporate Gravestone by Owen Pratt. Graphic horror. Viewer discretion advised. Perfect. Thanks for that heads up, Owen. I've got that added to the ticker. Awesome. So I got that down there. By the way, Do you know a writer who needs help with their story? Share it with a friend. Tap that share button right below the stream. There's a share button. Tap that share button, share it with a friend. The more writers we bring in, the better our writing community grows. So share it, and I appreciate you. All right, and I am set. Let me pull this up here. And I am all ready for you, Owen. All right, we got 20 minutes on the clock, and we're going to go dig into some horror. Okay. I know, Zerby, I'm jealous. I wish I queued up the popcorn today. I've only been getting the popcorn for the story time readings. Oh, yes, that's right. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, and thanks for that reminder. Okay, so let's see. We are starting with, I think I added the whole piece to it, but I remember that you said chapter 5. Chapter 6, chapter 5. Beautiful. So we're going to be starting here. Perfect. Chapter 5, The Ledge of Corporations. Okay. The Corporate Gravestone. The Corporate Gravestone by Owen Pratt. Chapter 5, The Ledge of Corporations. Jason's life became a waking nightmare. The constant fear and paranoia took a mental toll on his mental health. Jason's life became a waking nightmare. The constant fear and paranoia took a toll on his mental health. He started having vivid nightmares, waking up in cold sweats, his mind plagued by images of blood and violence. His performance at work began to suffer, and he could sense the management tightening its grip on him. Judy, the senior analyst who had once seemed so kind, revealed her true colors. She was deeply entrenched in the company off the book activities and had been monitoring Jason's every move. She started dropping subtle hints that she knew he was aware of the company's dark side. Her once friendly demeanor turned cold and menacing. Jason, you need to be careful, she said one day, her voice dripping with malice. This place isn't what it seems. But you already know that, don't you? If I were you, I'd watch my step. Jason's anxiety escalated. He realized that he couldn't trust anyone, and the feeling of isolation grew. The company had perfected psychological torture. They used fear and manipulation to control their victims, their staff, and Jason was now squarely in their sights. His breaking point came one evening when he returned to his small apartment to find a note slipped under his door. It was a simple piece of paper with the chilling message: "We know. Stay silent, or else." The threat was clear, and Jason felt the walls of his life closing in around him. The gang's grip tightened further when Jason was summoned to Albert's office one afternoon. The office, with its large windows and panoramic views of the city, felt like a trap. Albert greeted him with a cold smile, and there was an unsettling gleam in his eyes. Jason, his tone deceptively friendly, we've been observing your performance closely. You've been doing quite well, but we need to see a bit more commitment from you. Jason's mouth went dry. He knew this was not a standard performance review. Albert handed him a file, and as Jason opened it, his heart sank. Inside were details of a minor embezzlement scheme within the company. Jason was being coerced into participating in illegal activities. Consider this a test of your loyalty, Albert continued. Prove to us that you're one of us. Jason had no choice but to comply. He was given specific tasks that involved manipulating financial records and facilitating transactions that he knew were fraudulent. The moral conflict was agonizing. He hated himself for what he was doing, but the fear of what would happen if he refused kept him in line. The company used this opportunity to further break him down. They monitored his every move, ensuring that he followed through with their demands. The psychological pressure was relentless. Jason's mental state deteriorated as he grappled with his actions and the constant fear of retribution and death. As the weeks passed, the gang's demands escalated. Jason was no longer just an unwilling participant. He was becoming a pawn in their twisted game. The final straw came when he was called into Albert's office once more. This time, the atmosphere was even more oppressive. Albert's smile was gone, replaced by a steely, unforgiving glare. Jason, we have a new task for you. It's time for you to prove your loyalty in a more definitive way. Jason's stomach turned as Albert handed him another file. Chapter 6: The Burning of the Books. The night Jason was ordered to kill Judy was one he would never forget. The office was eerily quiet, as most employees had already left for the day. Jason's heart pounded in his chest as he made his way to the area where Judy often stayed late to finish her work. The fluorescent lights cast a cold, harsh glow over the rows of empty desks, and the silence was almost suffocating. Jason felt a deep sense of dread as he approached Judy's desk. He had known Judy for a few months now, and despite her complicity in the company's activities, she had always treated him with a certain level of kindness. She was efficient, knowledgeable, and had been one of the few people he felt he could turn to when he first started at Cromwell Industries. But now, standing just a few feet away from her, all he could feel was an overwhelming sense of guilt and horror. Judy looked up from her computer, surprised to see him. Jason, what are you doing here so late? She asked, her voice tinged with curiosity and a hint of concern. Jason struggled to find his voice. I need to talk to you, he managed to say, his voice trembling. He tried to keep his hands from shaking, but the terror he felt was almost paralyzing. Judy's eyes narrowed slightly, sensing that something was off. Is everything all right? She asked, standing up and taking a step towards him. Jason knew he had to act quickly. He had been given a knife, a cold steel blade that now felt like a burning weight in his pocket. His mind raced, thinking of any possible way out, any excuse he could make to avoid what he had been ordered to do. But deep down, he knew there was no escape. The company was watching, and any sign of hesitation could be fatal for both of them. Taking a deep breath, Jason reached into his pocket and wrapped his fingers around the handle of the knife. I'm sorry, Judy, he whispered, his voice barely audible. Before she could react, he lunged forward, the knife slicing through the air with a swift, brutal motion. Judy's eyes widened in shock and pain. As the blade plunged into her abdomen, she let out a strangled gasp, her hands instinctively reaching for the wound as she stumbled backward. Jason felt like he was moving through a nightmare. Every second stretched into an eternity as he watched Judy collapse to the floor, her life slipping away with each passing moment. Blood pooled around her, staining the pristine office carpet a deep crimson. Her breaths came in ragged, desperate gasps, and her eyes locked into his, filled with a mixture of betrayal and disbelief. Jason, why? She managed to choke out, her voice weak and fading, blood curdling out her mouth simultaneously. Jason fell to his knees beside her, tears streaming down his face. I had no choice, he cried, his voice breaking. They would have killed me. I'm so sorry, Judy. I never wanted this. Judy's body convulsed as she fought to stay alive, but the damage was too severe. Within moments, her movement ceased and her eyes glazed over as the light left them. Jason knelt there, his hands covered in her blood, consumed by a wave of overwhelming guilt and sorrow. He had crossed a line from which there was no return. and the weight of his actions threatened to crush him. As the reality of what he had done set in, Jason knew he had to act quickly. The company would be checking on him, ensuring that he had carried out their orders. He stood up, his legs trembling, and looked around the office, trying to figure out his next move. He needed to make it look like Judy had been a casualty of a random act of violence, something that wouldn't arouse suspicion. He hurriedly wiped the knife clean and placed it in Judy's hand, arranging her body to make it appear as though she had been attacked by an unknown assailant. He ransacked her desk, scattering papers and knocking over her belongings to create the illusion of a struggle. His heart pounded in his chest as he worked, the fear of being discovered pushing him to move faster. Yet, within it felt right, something inside of him enjoying every second of his own worst nightmare. Once he was satisfied that the scene looked convincing, Jason backed away, his eyes never leaving Judy's lifeless form. He knew he had to leave her before anyone saw him, but his legs felt like lead, and every step was a monumental effort. As he turned towards the exit, he heard a faint noise, a soft footstep behind him. He froze, panic surging through his veins. Slowly, he turned around, expecting to see one of the companies off the book, members watching him. But there was no one there. The office was still empty. The silence now filled with an eerie, oppressive weight. Jason took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. He knew he had to get out of there, to put as much distance between himself and the scene of the crime as possible. With one last anguished glance at Judy's body, he slipped out of the office and into the dimly lit corridor. The walk to the elevator felt like an eternity. Every shadow seemed to hold a threat, every sound amplified by his heightened senses. He pressed the button for the elevator, his hands still trembling, and waited. The moment stretched on, each second feeling like a lifetime. When the doors finally opened, he stepped inside and pressed the button for the ground floor, his heart pounding in his chest. Okay, and I will end the reading there. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't near the end of a chapter. Wow. Oh my goodness. Like, I just like, Owen, I have to say, like, that was really intense. I was like, I was immediately pulled into the world of the story. Your word choice, your description, and your use of world building sets a very clear tone for the story. I felt like I was in the world of the story alongside Jason, and that was done very, very well. Like, and then there was that moment where he looked back after he had killed her, and I almost thought, I'm like, ooh, am I going to get like a ghost supernatural element to it? I was like, oh, maybe not. Maybe it's just this company is evil. And I think what you do a really good job of is you include a lot of foreshadowing. You include a lot of foreshadowing as subtextual elements that keeps the reader engaged in the story, of like beyond the main story, beyond the main plot of like, okay, he killed her, like he doesn't want to get caught. Like that's straightforward. But there's this undertone, this context of like something creepier and something bigger is clearly going on. And it's intriguing. I was definitely hooked by the story. Really great work. Like really, really, really great work, man. I always love horror and thriller stories. So that was really fun. Let me think. So in terms of some opportunities for it. So as I said, world building, hands down the strongest. Your world building and the plot are hands down by far the strongest of this piece. Since we started in the middle as an excerpt, I can't speak too much to like the structure. But from what we read, the structure seems fine. I think the biggest opportunity for it, the dialogue that it does have. Jason Shogun, I need to talk to you, Jason. I mean, the dialogue you have is very straightforward. I don't have a problem for it. I think the biggest opportunity is description and character development. So like, I want to put this out there, Owen, that what you have out there works well. I think it means that, like, what if I were to take a crack at this, I would want to take it to the next level. Right now, it's good and it's interesting and it does what you're intending it to do. If I was going to elevate it to the next level, what we would want to do is we want to expand the descriptions. We'd want to start using more descriptions that rely on the other senses: smell, taste, touch. I want to start building more of those elements into it. And in addition to some simple line editing, I would say there's definitely some opportunities to just cut down a couple of the sections there, but that's pretty normal. In the route of like, okay, it would probably be when you're ready to take it to an editor. Okay, so let me go section by section. Chapter 6. Chapter 5 was a little bit more of the setup with the organization. So the chapter 5 was a little bit more straightforward, but I liked it. Even though like two different things were happening in each section, they both felt like they were part of the same world, the same story. Oh yeah, let me see. What does the chat think? That's good. Yeah, it looks like John is saying the prose is pretty good. I completely agree. It's your word choice, your the flow, the sentence structure, and the word choice. Oh, okay. So like the next by the end, it probably gets really graphic. I could sense that with just the killing when you kill her. I could totally see that. Yeah, you should definitely submit it. If the final chapter is the best, I mean, of course, unless you're like wanting it to be published, and you want to save the ending, but if you want the reaction from the community, definitely submit the final chapter in a future Saturday story and critique excerpt. Yeah, that's kind of what I sensed as well. I picked up on that as well. Like so far, what we read was a thriller. The killing of her moment, like there was kind of a little bit of like that horror context, and you actually even touch upon it. There's that moment where like he looks back and they're like something creepy is about to happen. And then I know you said that the ending's like super graphic. So my guess is that there's some really probably like intense horror elements that we didn't even get to dig into in this excerpt. Oh, sweet John, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Really, really appreciate that. Yeah, if you know any writers out there, definitely feel free to share the stream. The more writers that join the community, the better our discussions go. Oh yeah, as a side note, Marcella, you have to use the dashes. That's why. That's the spit. You probably didn't include. You have to use the dashes in between the creative ghost if you're trying to get a hold of me. My other email is the creative ghostwriter at gmail.com. There's the second email if that first one doesn't work. Let's see. Owen, the horror comes in the final chapter. Yep, I had a feeling that was it. Dropped in that too. Oof, man, where I can tell like a little bit of a tease. The final chapter has shards of glass running through pulsating eyes, running through pulsating. Oof. Oh god, that's like, oh, that's in like those horror movies. I love watching horror, but like, yep. Okay, I could totally tell then. Yeah, that gets me even more intrigued. I'm like, ooh, there's gonna be some gore in this story. Hmm. Well, yeah, Marcella, try. You can just send it to the other email address. That one's probably a little simpler. Um. hmm. Yeah, I would say use the creative ghostwriter email address, Marcella, and I should definitely that one should definitely work as well. And just let me know if it doesn't go through. Okay, let's see. I'm getting off track. So I want to get back into this. Let me see. Jason's life became a waking nightmare. Hmm. Yeah, and it's like even with like the dialogue, I think it's just, I mean, beyond like the normal editing, I think what you do is you do good description, even with the side characters. The description works out really, really nice. I think it's really fun. Yeah, I think that's what I would like to say. I would say you can just add some descriptions like that, and that would help add um not descriptions. Yeah, it just needs to be edited a little bit, but it's nothing crazy. Mm, mm. Garrett, by the way, if you want the gist of your story, or if you're wanting your story read, you can always send it to my email, Kaufman at the dash creative dash ghost.com. If you're wanting your story read and story excerpts, and that's where I accept the stories through, Garrett. Welcome to the stream, by the way. Happy to have you. You know, that's a great question. I've been getting a lot of asks for that. I'm actually putting together something right now for the community. So stay tuned. There's something coming. Absolutely. I got a writing community thing coming within the next couple weeks. Interesting. Okay, so we get it's just your use of dialogue, your use of description is just so well done. Oh my god, I know. Oh, this was just a technical note. So unless it's being spoken, no quotation marks. Yeah, so no quotation marks with that one. This is just a dialogue rule for everyone. Only use quotation marks if a character is physically speaking. If it's not, then the way we would do it is you would either italicize it. Like if you want to highlight something, I would why isn't my italics working? Oh, okay. Oh, because I'm in Google Docs. I'm like, all right. So yeah, you would italicize it if you want it to stand out, or give it its own paragraph. Like go like that. It was a simple piece of paper with a chilling message. We know, stay silent or else. That is very clear. That's very, very clear that there's no that stands out, right? And because that's basically, you've already set up that's on a piece of paper, and now the reader knows, oh, this is important. That's how I would go about it. The threat was clear, and Jason felt the walls of his life closing in around him. I like, and this is, you have so many good elements that work on building the story. The King's Grip. Yeah, I think what I'm getting at, Owen, is that the story's well written. I could literally go through this whole thing and continuously say how the story's well written. I think my specific feedback that would help you the most, in her death scenes, Albert handed him a file and start saying, like, yeah, no, the Albert scene is fine. I don't actually have a problem with the Albert scene. In the death scenes, Jason had no choice but to comply. He was given specific tasks. And it's like for this, I'll give you an example, right? So like from an editing perspective, it's like it's not something that I have that I'm able to do on a stream more time, but it just like things just need to be edited down. Jason had no choice but to comply. He was given specific tasks that involved manipulating financial records and facilitating transactions that he knew were fraudulent. It's an interest. So like you don't know that he knew it was fraudulent because because you're saying in the next sense, you're saying in the next sentence that he's already agonizing. So that's like that's clear. Jason had no choice but to comply. He was given specific tasks that involved manipulating and facilitating transactions. I would almost even cut that down. He was given specific tasks that involved manipulating financial records. The moral, the fraudulent nature, the fraudulent nature of the moral conflict was agonizing. The fraudulent nature of these moral conflicts were agonizing. So like I would just clean it up a little bit because it felt like a run-on for a second. Jason had no choice but to comply. He was given specific tasks that involved manipulating financial records. The fraudulent nature of these moral conflicts were agonizing. He hated himself for what he was doing, but the fear of what would happen if he refused kept him in line. And then that would be a new paragraph because that is its own concise paragraph. And it's just little things like that. And that's basically just, you need an editor to just go section by section. What you could do actually though, before the editing stage for the death scene and for things like when we kill her, like this is good. This is a good cliffhanger. Actually as a description, why does his stomach turn? Jason, we have a new task for you. It's time for you to prove your loyalty in a more definitive way. I would actually add like, what does he see? I'd have Jason's stomach turn as Albert handed him another file. On the front, on the front page were the words so and so. Quote, whatever you would put there. On the front page were the words blank, and Albert's. On the front page were the words quote. Jason's stomach churned as Albert handed him on another file. On the front page were the words quote. Jason's stomach churned. Because I would end off on Jason's emotion. Jason, it's time for you to prove your loyalty in a more definitive way. I would include that in the same sentence. I would go like this. Albert handed him another file. Yeah, I would do. Oh no, not like. Yeah, so I would keep that in the same sentence, in the same paragraph. Jason, we have a new task for you. It's time for you to prove your. Albert handed him another file. On the front page were the words blank. Albert's stomach. Albert's. On the front page were the words blank, which made Albert's stomach churn. End off on the emotion. So that's that. And then with the Judy death scene, the thing that I would include is just including what are the other senses. Right now it's good and it does work, but if you want to like get it to that next level, I want to know, what does Judy's blood, what does it smell like? What does the fear of death, what does that smell like? Does he get, I forgot if he gets any blood on him. What does it feel like? What does the knife, what does the knife feel like? Is he sweating a cold sweat? It's like little details like this, which would really elevate that like horror element to it. It'd be just little things like that I think would really take it to the next level. And you put a cold steel blade that now felt like a burning weight in his pocket. That's great. That is beautiful. I basically want like more of this. He had been given a knife, a cold steel blade that now felt like a burning weight in his pocket. Downey knew there's another company. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then even once he slices her, I would have a paragraph of description here about how she like falls to the floor and he could literally like smell the blood that pours out of her, or like blood splatters on his face, or she like looks at him as she's like falling to the ground. Because I want to get that moment of her like falling to the ground and collapsing even more substantial. You have it when she's on the ground, which is great. Blood pooled around her, staying in the pristine office. That's great. Her breaths were ragged. Yep. And that look is beautiful. That's really good. That's good. Yeah. So it's like overall it's good. It's just layering on more detail is my suggestion. Let's say I struggle so hard knowing how to paragraph it. I mean, your paragraph structure was actually really good. Really great work on that. I actually wouldn't have said that your paragraphs were problematic at all. So great work. Let's see. He can't smell. In the introductory section, he found out he lost the sense of smell due to cancer. Ooh, interesting. So if that's the case, then the way you would describe that is he can't smell. He found out he lost the sense of smell. So then the way you would go about that is you would still use smell. If if a character has been able to smell their entire life, what does the absence of smell like? Does he picture as as the as the knife sliced across her throat, he imagined it smelling like vinegar, right? So if somebody loses a sense, then if anything, the loss of that, it's kind of like when somebody what I in research I've done, when somebody loses a limb, it's called phantom limb, where you like imagine like that the limb is there. I would imagine that would be something similar with loss of smell. So then, like, you wouldn't, of course, wouldn't you'd be more describing what he thinks it should smell like. That would be the way to go about that. That's interesting. Yeah, and if that's like a key like thing that he lost, I would actually make that a little bit more integral into his character because that's really interesting to me. The idea of someone going through this like horror thriller filled story and not being able to smell anymore, like, ooh, that almost makes me think that's going to like bite him in the ass for some reason. I love your Game of Thrones reference. I think Melisandre says the maester smells of fear and piss and old bones. Very aptly put. From the Tale of Fire and Ice, a song of ice and fire. Yep. That's another really good, really good point. I wouldn't be too familiar, but that's a really good call out. you, now just guessing from being an avid reader my entire life, simply guessing. So that's cool actually that we're on the same page of that's the character direction. Awesome. Owen, that's all that I got for you. I know I went a little over time on yours, but I kind of hopped into some other comments, so I wanted to make sure I gave you the full amount of time you deserved. But it's great story, my man. Definitely, if you want me to hop into future excerpts, just make sure to send me another email and let me know I can re-add it to the submission queue for future readings. So, but like really great work. I love these types of stories, and I can tell the chat does as well. Awesome. Let's see where we are at. Okay, so we are doing really good. I'm like really happy with what we're getting. I think I got a couple emails. Let's see. Marcella, you said okay, you sent okay, so let me just check my email real fast, make sure I got them. Yes, Marcella, I got them. Beautiful. Um, let's see, Marcella. Awesome, Marcella. I got your email. I'll respond to you in a little bit after the stream. And then Garrett, I got your Valentine. Let's see, Garrett. Yep, got your story as well. Awesome, and I got your email as well, Garrett. All what I'll do is I'll add it to the queue. Absolutely, I'm gonna do my absolute best to get to as many stories today. We're at the 2 hour and 20 minute mark. Okay, all right. I need to move on. Okay. Let's see. Owen, could I resubmit chapter 6 so y'all get a taste of the real gross shit, or would I have to wait for next week? It would probably have to wait for another week because I have such a high number of submissions. I want to say today, I mean, we probably got about 15 plus submissions for today, and I generally am able to get through about 5 to 7, depending on how my voice does. But what you should do is resubmit. The sooner you resubmit, the more likelihood that you'll be able to get in for next weekends. So that's what I always recommend for people. There's only I can only get through so many stories at a time. Okay, so let me pull up who I got next on deck. I got let's see, I pulled up here. Let's see, JC Walker. JC, I got your story here on deck. We got a horror sci-fi. Ooh, I like that. So now we get more of a sci-fi vibe. I'll put horror slash sci-fi by JC Walker. Perfect. So we got yours on deck, JC. Excellent. Let me pull that story up and we'll get into it. Awesome. All right. So by the way, while we're before I hop into that one, let me just throw up the art of writing. So this is my newsletter, The Art of Writing. I launched the Easy Edit tool as the launch of it. I'm going to be shooting out the next edition of The Art of Writing this weekend. So if you want a copy of it or you want a copy of The Art of Writing, make sure that you go to the following link. Go to that link and subscribe. Sign up for the email list. The Art of Writing is essentially going to be a mix of writing strategies, short stories, and motivation to just help you write your stories. The Art of Writing is going to be specifically about writing style. It's going to be a mix of writing style and motivation. So make sure you sign up for the newsletter and you'll receive the Easy Edit tool, which will help you edit your stories faster. It's a free tool I created to just help improve the editing process. And you'll start receiving the Art of Writing newsletter. So make sure you're signed up for it at the link that I just dropped in the comments. So super cool. I'm looking forward to dropping the main official newsletter edition. Super excited for it. Okay, so with that one out of the way, let's see, JC. Let me turn this into a ticker. Perfect. So Meows from Hell. Ooh, I'm intrigued. I am excited and intrigued by this. All right, and I'm all set up on my end. Let's see, we don't want that. Let's go that. So we got JC Meows from Hell. Meows from Hell by JC Walker. Verily, terrified. So very dreadfully terrified am I. I know you may think me mad. I too question my reality. This cannot be, but I've seen it. I never had. You've seen it too. Most everyone has, at least small parts of it, though you never guessed the loathsome truth. It's not that I hated them, not then, more that they were just never in my life. At an early age, I found my calling, my quest, my grail, and from then on, nothing else mattered. I had no room for puerile distractions, whether with 2 legs or 4. Yet even I had seen them do it, staring off into space, following something, moving over your shoulder when nothing is there. Never did I give it much thought. They are strangely inscrutable beings. You may have found it cute, endearing even, but you haven't seen through my mind's eye, or rather through theirs. Admit it. You think I'm crazy. Touch paranoid. Admit it. You think I'm crazy. Touched paranoid. Sorry, one second. Admit it. You think I'm crazy, touched, paranoid. Paranoid I may be, but with cause. You're not crazy if what you fear is real, are you? I don't see demons everywhere. I know exactly where the monsters dwell, the very pits of hell that are here and now. The fiends are amongst us all. If only we had the eyes to see, and I do, or at least I did. Now that I know what they truly are, and they know that I know, it seems they are everywhere, always watching me, stalking me. I've had to hide away out here, lest they track me down. I am a tremble just relating this, but it will try to staunch my shuddering and relate for you my tale. Hearken. The mind has always fascinated me, and I followed that fascination into brain science. Insipidly, it was as a kid watching Star Trek reruns when I first saw Spock do a Vulcan mind meld that I encountered my life's work. I didn't know it then, but telepathy, or at least the direct communication between minds, fascinated me. Ere you think I was mad then. I never thought telepathy was real. But as I grew and learned that thought was essentially just electrical signals, it seemed a small step to just send those signals from one mind to another. And then naivety of youth. No small step it was, but after years of struggle, I had my first basic prototype. It would not be true telepathy, but would allow one to see what the subject was seeing and sensing. An excellent beginning. I was careful, so careful, as I contemplated testing. Who knew what another brainwave could do to one's mind? Could it scramble your mind? Overwhelm you with a second identity? Would your mind even be able to decipher the foreign signals? Could it simply, in very unscientific terms, fry your brain? Then there was the problem of the University Oversight Committee. They wanted myriad more tests before I could test on humans. We tested it between lab animals. They seemed shocked and disturbed, but survived. But they wanted more and more tests, and I was tired of dissecting brains. So late one night, alone in the lab, I began secret testing. My first subject was a rat. After attaching the electrodes to us both, I turned it on. Slowly, ever so slowly, I turned up the power. My eyes were closed, but I began to see fuzzy, indistinct gray shapes. Of a sudden, I was overcome with so many intense smells. It nauseated me. And the loud amalgam of humming sounds from the lights and equipment overwhelmed me. Rats are nervous, hyper creatures, and as I dialed it further up, I began to twitch and fidget as an all-encompassing sense of dread and apprehension overpowered me. I had broken into a cold sweat when I ripped the electrodes from my head. Enough! As I regained my composure and my senses returned to normal, human normal at least, it suddenly struck me. I'd done it! I had linked to another mind. The joy I had felt was unfathomable through mixed with a dreadful foreboding. For several nights, my sleep was fitful and nightmarish. By day, I was squirmy and always on edge. I would not commingle my mind with a rat or any prey animal again. Still pondering my next move, I arrived home one rainy day to find a small, wet mutt on my porch. Taking pity, I let him in, dried him off, and fed him some scraps. He seemed a calm, friendly sort, and when I saw he had no tags, it suddenly struck me. I had my next subject. Bundling him up, I raced back to the lab. As it was nearing midnight, there would be no prying eyes. Once we were connected, I again slowly turned up the dial. It was less shocking this time, as my face came into focus, though in shades of blue, yellow, green, and gray. The smells and sounds were similar, but less jarring, and this time I only felt a sense of calming contentment. Turning up the dial, I could even hear his heartbeat. Feeling a sudden itch, or rather, his vision moved from me to his crotch, where he began to lick and lick and lick. Though not altogether unpleasant, I found it vexatious in the extreme. The visual image was perturbing enough, but the warm sensations of delectation and even arousal were... I immediately cut the feed. Disquieted, I disconnected the mutt and we both went outside. Myself for some air and to clear my head, and he for, well, he was a dog. Suffice to say, I was gratified we were no longer connected. I felt exhilarated yet exhausted. Whether I was habituating to the device or it was simply the choice of a more harmonious subject, I felt a surety that I had succeeded. The rat experience had given me pause, but now I was primed to continue. Thinking I would try the device on full power, I herded the mutt back inside, where I encountered the cat, Ebony, with eyes of jade. The cat had been found waiting at the door one snowy morning by a custodian. Brought in and fed, he or she, it made itself at home. It was some time before I saw it, and by then it seemed to have the staff in its thrall, so I just let it pass. It was against policy, but as long as it was kept downstairs and away from the rats and other test animals, I didn't then see any real harm. No one would have. Not then. The mutt and the cat actually got along. Some sniffing and cautious pacing was all that ensued. The cat seemed much more interested in me, rubbing up against my legs, and that's when I realized I had another subject. Cool, calm, collected. It seemed perfect. Taking it up to my lab, I gave it a saucer of milk as I hooked us both into the device. It was purring rapturously. This would be an easy final test before I tried it with another human. How could anyone have fathomed the horror that awaited? Ignorantly confident and relaxed, I slowly turned up the dial. The cat was still lapping at the bowl, and my first sensation was the taste of milk, along with a deep feeling of contentment. It, could see clearly in the dim light of the lab, but all was muted blues and grays. Further turning up the dial, I felt a sudden jolt of shock as the cat jerked and looked up at me with a start. The device was designed to only send signals in one direction, but could the cat somehow be receiving feedback of my presence? The snarling cat now had its tail and hair up, the very picture of a Halloween black cat. It wasn't fear, but anger I sensed, a deep feeling of indignation and outrage, of violation. Such strong, distinct emotions had not been present in my earlier tests. I was at once repulsed and cowed. I was about to shut it down when or rather the cat, saw them. Even the few of you, my readers, who've accepted the verisimilitude of my narrative thus far may now assume me demented, deranged. What I will relate is, of course, preposterous, but not unthinkable. Though I may be the first to authentically view the frightening truth, others have suspected it. Lovecraft described it thusly: the cat is cryptic and closely to things men cannot see. Ha! Now you know I'm touched and living in a fantastical realm. I'm quoting Lovecraft as gospel, but heed, I am no Azathonian, but in this, at least, he glimpsed the truth, as you shall see. The cat was looking over my shoulder and behind me. At first, I saw only a dim blue swirl, but as it neared into focus, I jerked around but could perceive nothing through my human eyes. But the cat saw, behind me and inching closer and seemingly distracted by the cat's eyes, a deep blue wavy figure approached, not unlike an air dancer you might see advertising a car lot, though this had a multitude of execrable tentacle-like appendages and a visage from hell. I was frozen in a horrific awe as it reached out for me, and then I discerned yet another cyanic demon behind it, then one in cobalt, and another azure, and others of cerulean and indigo and sapphire, and as I saw their spaghetticles permeate into my every orifice, I began to calm somewhat, and the cat began to purr. My fear of the feline fiend being to subside, as I could almost feel the cat direct its minions to envelop me. Without volition, my arm began to reach for the cat as if to pet it. No! I screamed as I instead struck the cat. Of a sudden, I felt a pain in my, or rather the cat's temple, and then a sense of hateful malevolence as the cat shrieked and leapt for my face, still lodging its electrodes in flight. Between its mouth and feet, a cat has 4 piercing, slashing talons and fangs. I seemed to encounter them all. In a blur of blood and pool, I battled the shrieking hellion. The vision in my right eye was dimming as I was ultimately able to extract myself from the savage monstrosity. I flung it across the room as I exited and slammed shut the lab door. Whew. End reading. Oh man, that was intense. Woo! Wow. Your use of language and world building in that was very well done, my friend. Wow. You did an excellent job of foreshadowing thing of it was interesting that it was like ambiguous enough, but it was with intentional ambiguity that you foreshadowed things that could happen. I'm gonna be honest, the style of the story, yeah, like even before we got to that moment with the cat, was kind of like a cross for me between the Fly, that original the classic story of the Fly, the man becoming a fly, and a cross between Frankenstein. Like the style felt very much reminiscent of a Frankenstein type story where you're kind of talking through the story itself is basically taking us along the journey of something that is like so like inhumanly grotesque scientific that it like intrigues us. And I love that. I absolutely love that. Really good job. I like have to say this. The world building for this story was so well done. I felt like I was in the world every single moment of it. Your character development, incredible, because it's done through the interiority. Like, oh, I love that. I absolutely love that. Since we're only at a section and I didn't really get to finish it, it's hard for me to speak to the plot or the structure per se, but it seemed to work just from what I was doing. Um, yeah, wow. Oh, that totally makes it. Yep, that totally makes sense. Yep. I love the Lovecraft reference, by the way. That was really sweet. You could just tell how much they were inspired through Lovecraft. That was absolutely incredible. So, absolutely. Awesome. And then what else do we got? Hey, what's up, Hamiri? Thanks for dropping by the stream, by the way. We were just in the middle of doing a reading. Okay, what else? So that was a good Lovecraft thing. What would my recommendations be for it? So let's see. Meows from Hell. This makes sense now. I think that my biggest suggestions for it would probably be hmm. That's awesome. I could see how that would be as an inspiration. Jay, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm just like how's I got like I got the catitude. I got the catitude mug. Um Yeah, Jay, I think this is one of those examples where I'm like, from a developmental perspective, like the story is very well told. It's very succinct, and the overall concept is well done. It's hard for me to speak to like the plot because like I'm not super clear yet on what the plot of the story is specifically. So like it seems like like his journey is that he's basically trying to understand conscious. He has this machine where he can basically feel each other's conscious, right? So then the question that I ask myself as a reader is the journey of him trying to understand conscious at basically at to any extent, like he's like the mad scientist, or is the journey of him trying to understand conscious and then the cat basically like brings up this like demon thing. It's like that's kind of like the question that I ask myself as I really think through it. Ah, man. Let's see. I assume. Yeah, and I think that's actually a good. I assume people who don't know what verisimilitude means. Yeah, and I think that was something interesting, Jay. So I think in the middle, once you got to the cat portion, I'd say you started. So you started using a lot of very unique, not unique, but just more advanced vocabulary, and I could tell that it picked up in the cat section of the story. I would just be aware of using specific word choice that the reader may or may not be familiar with. The question you want to ask yourself is, who is your target reader? And that's how we differentiate and determine what the vocabulary and the word choice should be. Because the word choice of this is much more advanced, but it felt like during the cat section, during the first third of the story, that the word choice, like it wasn't as advanced, but then once we got to the cat portion of it, like the words you started using were just more like after the Lovecraft thing. I am no as a as a Thothian. I don't even know what that means in all honesty. But it could be a Lovecraft. It could be a Lovecraft reference. But I don't read as much Lovecraft, so that could be it. Um, multitude of ex execrable tentacle-like appendages. Excrement. So that means like excrement, right? But it's like questions I ask like that, right? So it's like you use these specific words where I'm just like, I have to think about it if I understand. But if your target audience is like an advanced mature reader who's very like huge word choice, then keep it the way it is. But if your goal is for like a wider audience, then I would um not dumb down. I would just choose word choice that readers are more likely to understand. Um, but that's just me. It just depends who you're writing it for. Another cyanic demon. So like cyanic, like cyanide. Cerulean and indigo. I love that. I love the descriptions. And I saw their spaghetticals. Spaghetti. What an interesting word. Is that even a word? I mean, no, it has to be. Like, I've never heard that. Like spaghetticals. But what's interesting, yeah, what's really interesting about that is technically like this technically isn't a word, but yet it feels like it works. And it feels unique to the character and the world. It's like I think that's cool. As I saw their spaghetticals, like that's so fun. I would do a little bit more of this early on, where he's kind of like the protagonist kind of like mixes like words and is kind of making it his own. So that way this feels like this is the character does this as a thing. Yeah, no, I could tell, but I love that. I think that was great. I think you just do that type of thing where you do that, but you make it like a character choice. Is a portmanteau. Do those not count as real words, right? And that challenges the question of what's real and what's not real. That really comes down to technically the author defines what's real. And the thing is, you could use a whole thing of fake words if you wanted to. But what it comes down to is reader comprehension. This is a pro tip. Once again, I'm always of the mindset make your story as easy as possible for the reader. You don't want to chance your reader losing interest or getting confused because you're making up all these words. However, if from the very beginning of the story you make it crystal clear of like the protagonist is like, I have a knack for combining uh words of like or you just like you make that an actual character trait and you call it out in the beginning, then the reader gets on like, oh, that's actually a cool concept. That's like a character thing. But you have to make it clear that it's intentional, not that it's an unintentional thing that the reader's then trying to figure out. You absolutely can, Eli. I agree with that. That's another thing as well. So sometimes what readers will do, or sometimes what writers will do, is they'll add a footer in the. Sometimes they'll add footers that will describe certain words. Actually, I think that would be a great idea, Jay. I would actually recommend that if you're doing that as a specific thing throughout the story, you should maybe add like a footer or a dictionary section that defines what some of these words are to help the reader. I think that'd be a great strategy, on honesty. Hey, what's up, Sean? Welcome to the stream, by the way, my friend. Glad you're able to make it. Yay! Woo! I know, because we got so much like storytelling and feedback. I'm glad it's helping you. I do too. The character, and this is what I love about this character, Jay. Your character he feels wicked, and it feels like he feels like he's a mad scientist who's going along this journey of becoming wicked through this like oh, I love the mad scientist trope so much, and he feels like a modern mad scientist. Oof! Oh, I love it. I love it so much. It might be useful to italicize it so the reader is. Yep, you could italicize it as another way. Um, and maybe that is right. Maybe people think he's weird because he has a tendency to make up words. The only word made up is spaghetticals. My take on black hole spaghettification. So, Jay, what I would say is either do that as a consistent thing and make that a character thing and then define the words, or don't do it at all. Or if you do use spaghetticals, have the character call it out in the moment that the word is that he's making up the word. Describe the way that spaghetticals is, right? Otherwise you chance on losing the reader. That's all. That would be my recommendation. Do it, but do it with intention. Do it, describe it for the reader. So that way, or describe it through the protagonist concept. That would be my recommendation. Yeah, I definitely got that. I was trying to write a modern story, but in old Gothic post style. I 100% got that. I don't read a lot of Gothic style, but that's why it kind of made me think of Frankenstein, of that like kind of more like classic. It definitely had like a classic story type of vibe, which I love. We don't always get stories from this type of perspective that often in the modern day and age, so I think that was brilliant. But yeah, I think that would just be the biggest thing to be focused on, Jay, would be going through word choice. I think it would just be making sure of like, does each word, is it clear to the reader? That'd be my biggest thing. And then of course, just editing. It's the story's at the point where it's like I can tell it's developed. The next point would be like having it edited because it's so well developed. I think it would be at doing a line edit and just cutting down on certain words and cutting down on like even on here, right? You have this one is that is one paragraph. And forgive me if it was a formatting error on my part, but this one paragraph is literally one, two. I mean, on my end, that's about 2 pages, but I have the text blown up. So realistically, this paragraph's probably about 3/4 of a page or a page. Long blocks of text can put off readers. So the recommendation is like I would, if I was editing, I would split this up into smaller paragraphs just so you don't chance losing a reader from blanking out at a long block of text. So that would be my recommendation. Mm, yeah. Oh my God. That was a fun story, Jay. That's all that I got for you. I hope that I was able to help out a little bit. That was a really fun story. Thanks for sharing that. I'm like, I'm intrigued. I'm really intrigued. I like it like makes me think that the cat was like that the cat's actually either evil or the cat could like see into another realm. That was fun. The stories y'all are submitting to me today are like absolutely incredible. I'm having a fun time reading through these stories. Hmm. Okay. So let's see what we got next. And let's see what did we have here. Garrett, you asked a great question. What's the cue list if it's not rude to ask? So essentially the cue list is just a term that I coined, and I get so many stories submitted to me for these critique shows sometimes. So when I get a story submitted, it just gets added to a list that I have running of like, all right, who's next? Because I have to be able to keep track of which stories I have that still need to be read, because a lot of the times I'm starting to get more and more submissions, and I generally not able to get through all the submissions in a single stream. So, but that's great question. Absolutely great question. I know. The title pulls the reader in immediately. Absolutely. I'm glad I was able to help you out, Jay. That's awesome. Okay. Who do we got next? I got reading number 6, 39 by Josh Ampuero. I got a script here. This is going to be fun. Okay. So, let me see. And while I'm pulling up Josh's script, let me do a quick throw out. Subscribe. If you find any value from the stream, don't forget to follow and subscribe. Tap that button. If you're on YouTube, make sure you hit the notification bell, because I go live every single day. I'm a crazy writer like that. Whether you're looking for writing community workshops, story and critique shows like this, podcasts with published authors, or you just want to sit down and listen to me reading best-selling books, I got it all. So if you're subscribed, you'll be alerted when I go live. All right. And I got Mr. Josh Ampuero. I got your script here. And I think I got this. All right, Josh. And I got yours all queued up. All right. And I think this is a short little script. So let's see what we got here. I know Josh does a lot of YouTube stuff as well, and he tends to do comedy. So I think we got something interesting here. All right. So I got it pulled up on screen. And I got 20 minutes on the clock. Oof. All right, let's do it. Awesome. Absolutely, Garrett. We'll do. 100% will do. I'll shoot you an email. Okay. So I got Josh's script, exterior desert day. The script is called 39. Kid 10 jumps in place in the middle of the desert all by himself. A large board lays a few feet away from him next to a shovel planted in the dirt. With each jump, Kid calls out 39, 39, 39, 39, 39. Dude, 21, walks up to him. 39, 39. Hey, kid. 30. Yeah? What are you doing? What's it look like? Jumps again. 39, 39. Kid continues to jump while dude answers. It looks like you're jumping up and down in the middle of the desert and saying 39 over and over again. 39. Yeah, 39. That's 39. What 39? I'm 39 doing. Well, why? Are you all right? He stops. Of course I'm all right. Can't you see all the fun I'm having? He jumps again. 39. What? Fun? 39. How is this fun? 39. Hello? 39. Man, you're running the game with all your negativity. What game? I didn't know you were playing a game. Of course you didn't. You're an adult. Oh, and what is that supposed to mean? It means you wouldn't know fun if it Gangnam styled in front of you all day long. Dude hesitates for a second, then, Now, if you'll excuse me, he jumps. 39, 39. Well, I'll just be going then. 39. I've got a pretty busy day ahead of me. with lots of adult responsibilities. 39, dude walks away as he calls out, have fun with your little game. 39, that doesn't look like fun at all. 39, it's actually a bit childish. He leaves kid by himself again. 39, goodbye. 39, 39, 39, 39. The dude comes rushing back. All right, fine. I'll play your silly little game, but only because you really want me to. Sure. So, how do you play? Well, it's really simple. You just stand on this board, points at the board, jump up and down, and say 39. Uh-huh. Dude looks quizzically at the board, then at the shovel planted in place behind them next to a mound of dirt. He glances back at the kid, who smiles innocently. Dude shrugs. Okay, seems legit. Dude steps on the board. Like this? Yep. Ready? Yeah. Okay. 39. He jumps. 39. Dude jumps. 39. 39. 39. Hey, you're right. This is pretty fun. 39. Yep. Dude while jumping. But 39. I've been 39. Been meaning 39 to ask 39 about something. 39. Yeah? Why? 39 is 39. This game 39 called 39. 39. Yeah, 39. Kid whirls around and runs right at dude as he jumps. In midair, dude looks down in terror as kid kicks away the board, revealing a huge bottomless hole. Dude falls into the hole and out of sight, screaming, "Oh!" Kid hears a loud and then walks over to the board. He picks it up and drags it back over to cover the hole. Again, he cleans the dirt off his hands and takes his place a few feet away from the board. He jumps again as he calls out, 40, 40, 40, 40. End scene. It's dark. Oh my God. That was a dark scene. Oh man. That was wow, that was a dark little piece for sure. It makes sense now. That was a really good punchline. I was very intrigued, right? Like that was great. That was great. So y'all know Josh Josh is one of my friends. He does a lot of YouTube videos and YouTube stuff as well. He does some really good stuff. So this is definitely up his style. Let's see. Josh. This script is fun. Good, but a really old joke. Oh, is that a really old joke? I was like, I don't think I've heard that joke before. But I mean, like, if you think about it, Mary, like a lot of times what people do, like a good strategy is people will take jokes that were done or take styles or take things that were done from a different time period and just bring them forward to a newer audience. I was wondering because I hadn't heard that joke before. So I'm like, okay, yeah, that pretty much worked. I mean, the kid was basically screaming 39 the entire time. Clearly, like the 39 hits. Like I wanted to know why 39. Yeah, it was fun. That was funny. Josh clearly knew the joke and the audience, and that worked very well. I think if I were cleaning this up a little bit, I think what I would do is I would clean up some of the things. I tend to like rule of threes. So I would clean up some things like that. Just for a repetitive nature. Did you use 39? No, wait, he didn't use it 39 times. Okay. All right. Now, okay. We need to do a 39 check. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39. Okay, not use 39. I know. Eli, I saw that. Did you use 39 times? That would be super clever. Josh, edit this so you use it only 39 times. That's actually super clever. I didn't even think about that, Eli, but that would be really clever. If it is there 39 times, it definitely was not intentional. Josh, you should edit this so that way it's used only 39 times. That would be hilarious. And then call it out in the script. That would you change it so it's only done 39 times. That's funny. But yeah, so in edits like this, the way I would edit it is I would actually get rid of some of the 39s because there's parts of the script where the 39 feels repetitive, but I get what you're going for, right? So I get basically he's repeating and he's basically having fun with the 39. But I get it because a lot of times it's like a YouTube video, like you're essentially filming this yourself, so you basically get to see on how it's going to be acted out. But like the script is very clear in what it's achieving. I like kid continues to jump will dude answers. The dude is very aptly named for the character. It works, right? He's a dude. Good job on that. I think both the characters are very clear. I think the only thing I don't get is why the kid's a sadistic little shit killing 39 people. Yeah, I've never heard this joke before, so I was like, you got me because I thought that was hilarious. Um, so it looks like you're jumping up and down. Yeah, I think the only thing that I don't get right now in this iteration is I don't get why the kid is a sadistic little shit. That I don't get yet. Um, but I mean, essentially, it's the right now, like the joke itself works. I think what I would do is I would add on some of the kids' dialogue pieces, I would add maybe little bits of detail that are suggestive that he either what his interest is, what his preference, his interests, so that way it feels even more believable when he kills the guy when he kills the dude at the end that he's a sadistic little fuck. Right now, I mean, it works, right? It works right now. It does. I would agree with that. It does feel like a variation on the classic Bluebird story. Um, yeah, like this would be the perfect part, Josh. Have fun with your little game. That doesn't when the dude's asking about why you do it, and was that it means you don't know fun if it Gangnam styled in front of you all day long. So clearly the kid is influenced by culture. He's influenced by pop culture. Gangnam Style, little older, but still works. Um, I would do like references like this. Instead of Gangnam Style, I would do something that's more like a darker tonality, like something that's like it means you wouldn't know fun if it Fight Clubbed you in the face. I would do something that's more intense nature, that would be calling it out. So that way, like every reference the kid makes is intentional of like, okay, this kid's a psychopath. Like essentially the reason the kid's doing this is because he's a child psychopath. Or maybe there's another reason, maybe for whatever reason, but I would do that in the references. So that way, when he pulls the thing at the end, it's like beyond it being funny, beyond the hilariousness of just the joke itself, it's even more believable because the believability in the humor is what adds to it. From a script perspective, I would do that. And then the other thing I would do is I mean, if you want to do 39 times, I think that's funny. But I think there's moments where you can actually cut out some of the 39s, and that's just more for brevity than anything else. Because you get the point across with 39. Yeah, and like this is a moment where this would be like great character development. Of course I'm all right. Can't you see all the fun I'm having? Um, all my friends left me, or I don't need friends. Or none of my friends like playing this game, or none of my friends will play this game with me anymore. Like this line is the perfect time to do a foreshadow, but you do it so like childishly that the audience doesn't get a clue. That this is when you would do foreshadowing bit. lots of adult, and you can just tell you can just tell the dude is immature, and this it works. The board and the shovel. Yeah. Yeah, like, yep, I think I would do something like that actually. Like kind of challenging almost, like no one can beat me at this game. And I think that would actually make the motivation for the dude to want to play it even clearer. Because right now the dude you kind of look at it of like have fun with your little game. The reason the dude comes back to play it is because it looks fun. So that means for it to be fun, that whoever is the kid has to literally be having the time of their life. I think if you add in the motivation of like that, there's also a challenge aspect to it. I think that would be just another motivation to get the dude to come back. Of like, okay, I'm going to beat you at your own game. I think that would add to it as well. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's great. Yeah, and I think Kid Wills runs right at dude as he jumps in, and this is all good. He and this is just like its perfect punchline because you get it. Like he pushes in the thing, right? And they're like, oh, 40. You end like that's great job bringing the joke forward. I know Mary called this out earlier, but like that's a great style, right? Bringing something from an older generation or an older joke to a modern audience. I'd never heard of that joke before, so that was fresh for me. With it, you're like, what happened? Who was the 38th guy? Oh man. Yeah, I would agree with that. It's kind of funny. Uh awesome. Josh, that's kind of all that I got for you. This was a pretty straightforward little read. I had a lot of fun doing that. I was like counting myself of like, okay, how am I going to do the two characters? So I hope I gave it just justice with the dude. The dude's like surfer dude, bro. Let's get some za. Well, you're just yep, I am. I'm so what are you talking about? I'm an old man. Yeah, but you see that works, right? And I think that worked really well. Really good choice, Josh. Awesome. So with that being said, so this is actually a great time to call out. So Josh is actually going to be joining me, Mr. Ampuero. Let me pull up. I think I need to pull up the image. Let me see if I can pull up this image. Okay, I know what I'll do. All right. So for those of you who are intrigued by the script, you should join us tomorrow because tomorrow's podcast episode of oh, that's not fun. Let's go there. Tomorrow's podcast episode will be the Creative Right Now podcast of Josh Makes Movies. So we're going to be sitting down tomorrow, and I'll drop myself. And we're going to be sitting down. I'll be sitting down with Mr. Ampuero, and we're going to be chatting about how do you write a good story that makes people laugh. Josh, over on his YouTube channel, Josh Makes Movies, does spoofs, skits, comedies of all natures. And we're going to be sitting down and talking how do you write a good story that really like evokes humor? How do you like, even with this script, right? Maybe sometimes it's bringing an old story into an for a new audience. There's so many different strategies. So make sure that you come join us for tomorrow's episode of the Creative Right Now podcast. Let's see. We will be airing tomorrow at, let me pull up the schedule. We will be airing it tomorrow. I'll pull it up here. And I just happen to have it on YouTube. Perfect. So tomorrow's Creative Right Now podcast will be at 2 p.m. Mountain Time. Yep. 2 p.m. Mountain Time. So come join us as me and Josh, we are going to have quite a fun podcast interview tomorrow. So make sure don't miss out. It'll be a fun experience. So far in our previous podcasts, we focused more on dramatic storytelling. We've touched on books, on novels. We've touched on magazines. Tomorrow, we get to do a little deep dive into comedy. And what is the art of comedy? And how do you write a joke? How do you write a humor? How do you write satire? How do you write things that evoke laughter? Not one of my strengths, but I'm curious to learn more. So join us and that'll be a cool experience. And with that being said, let's see, that puts us at the 3 hour and 10 mark. So I'm going to wrap up today's readings. My voice is toast. My voice is definitely toast. I definitely did more readings. So that was cool. If I didn't get to your story today, don't worry. I got you covered, where we'll be adding them to future. Stay tuned for next Saturday's show of the Story and Critique show. Continue to submit and I'll be adding them and I'll continue on based on what I have previously received. The sooner you send in an excerpt, the sooner I'm able to get to it. Awesome. So I really want to thank everybody's submissions today. We got such a selection of sci-fi, fantasy, comedy, horror. Today was probably one of the best overall variations of genre and style today. And all of you guys, like a lot of great stories. Really well done. I don't know how to write comedy. It just happens accidentally. Maybe there's some secrets here to understanding the art of comedy. And if you want to check out any of Josh's stuff, go his YouTube channel, Josh Makes Movies. He has some really funny stuff on there. Absolutely. Awesome. And with that being said, what do I got next? If you're wanting some more story reading, let's say you're like, you know what, I'm not done. I want to hear some more stories, some more critiques. Go check out the Reading Sprints for Storytellers playlist down in the YouTube description below. It's a playlist of previous Story and Critique show episodes if you missed out on any and you want to catch up. Now, normally I would hop into my writing sprint, but I'm burnt out. I'm going to have to do some writing later offline. So I'm going to call it a stream because I'm done for the stream. 3 hours and going over 3 hours, I can tell starts pushing my limit if I've been talking consistently for 3 hours. So that's what I got for you. I'm going to wrap up there. But as I look towards creative writing on the morrow, like I said, come join us for our episode of the Creative Right Now podcast. And what else? Oh, that's right. Also, we have a really cool poll. Let me throw up here, community. If you have not voted yet, I threw up a poll earlier in the week. There we go. So there's my YouTube channel. Go to the community and vote. What element of the fantasy genre is your favorite? I'm curious because I just want to know what people like the most about the fantasy genre. Right now, we have an even tie between magic and lore. I thought Hero's Journey would come out a little farther ahead, but I'm not surprised by magic. Vote now if you haven't already over on the community tab on my YouTube channel at Kaufman's Corner. Super cool. Vote now. All right. And that is all. that I got for you, my friends. It has been a blast. I have had so much fun reading your stories today. It has been quite an endeavor. Make sure to keep submitting and don't forget, tap that like button on your way out. Let me know that you got some value. Just smash that little like button below the video. And that is all that I got for you today. Don't forget, words are wind, but stories are forever. I'm Kaufman, and I'll catch you on the morrow. Stay creative, writers.